Chapter 1172. Just as Yun Yang broke the shackles of the captive, two strange swooshing noises could be heard. Two plump spirit-sucking bugs suddenly flew up, charging towards Yun Yang while twisting their bodies. The spirit-sucking bugs were instinctively passionate about mystical qi, and were extremely sensitive to the surrounding spiritual qi. Yun Yang's entry into their territory had naturally attracted their attack. Yun Yang did not have the slightest fondness for these two evil creatures. Without hesitation, he kicked the two soul-sucking bugs in midair. With two soft thuds, the bodies of the two soul-sucking bugs turned into minced meat in midair. Although the spirit-sucking bugs had the unique talent of absorbing mystical qi and spiritual power, their targets were either captives who were completely defenseless, or those who were extremely weak. Yun Yang, for example, would not be able to withstand even two light kicks, and would be crushed into dust immediately. The moment the spirit-sucking bugs perished, an extremely dense mystical qi diffused. It was the essence of the spiritual crystals that the spirit-sucking bugs had accumulated in their bodies. If they had absorbed all of it, it would have been greatly beneficial. However, Yun Yang had gotten rid of it with a wave of his sleeves. Such an evil energy that came from an external source was extremely disgusting to even touch, let alone absorb it into one's body. Third uncle grew weaker after the series of setbacks, but his murky eyes lit up unexpectedly as he stared at Yun Yang without blinking. His crippled body was carefully released by Yun Yang and placed on the ground steadily. Although he was still in a bad state, his shackles had been removed, and he had regained his freedom. However, third uncle still did not blink, staring at Yun Yang. Other than that, he was panting heavily, a blush creeping onto his corpse-like face. The other 5 people were also excited. Their hollow eye sockets were shining brightly. Mu Feng. Third uncle looked at Yun Yang, his voice trembling. You are Mu Feng? Are you really Mu Feng? Yun Yang did not nod nor shake his head. He replied softly, Third uncle, this is not the place to talk. Let me get rid of these scum first. In reality, there were already a few guards who were lucky enough to survive that had fled for their lives. Thus, the people outside also learned that there was an enemy invasion. Battle cries suddenly erupted, and countless people rushed in. How could Yun Yang care about such a small amount of manpower? As he swung the saber in his hand, a ball of saber light exploded once again, filling the entire passageway like a roller. For a moment, the saber light was as dazzling as a dragon, pushing outwards. Those who stood in its way were annihilated. Wherever the saber light passed, not only were the few guards who were trying to escape cut into pieces of flesh and blood before they could even let out a scream, but as the saber light continued, a series of cries of alarm and misery rang out from afar, lingering on endlessly. After a long while of concentrated sounds, the dungeon returned to a deathly silent atmosphere. It was not that no one wanted to speak, but everyone had been killed by Yun Yang. He had killed them all. None of the people who were rushing in were spared by this saber strike. Amidst the silence, an unprecedentedly thick stench of blood assaulted the nostrils. There was only red and nothing else in sight. Although the cultivation base of the Lei family's men was not weak, compared to Yun Yang, who was now at the pinnacle of a 4th-level Saint King, they were child's play. It was as easy as flipping his hand. Seeing that the Lei family had been annihilated, Yun Yang stretched out his hand again. With a swoosh, the divine edge flew back from afar and landed in his hand. The blade was as clear as ever, untainted by even a speck of dust. Third great uncle and the others were dazzled by this miraculous and extraordinary technique, and their hearts were filled with boundless shock. The weak youth who had run away from home all those years ago had actually grown to such an extent? Even Lei Junming and the others who had lost their limbs were so shocked that they even forgot to scream. The path has been cleared. Without batting an eyelid, Yun Yang had already injected 6 streams of qi of vitality into the bodies of 6 people, including the person who had been begging for mercy. However, Yun Yang knew very well that although the qi of vitality was a top-notch item that could heal and prolong one's life, it could only slightly delay the time of death for these 6 people. It could not really bring them back to life, but Yun Yang had still done it. He believed that this last moment of life was crucial to these 6 people. Third uncle, How do you want to deal with this Lei Junming and his sons? The people on the ground were in a mess, and people were rushing over from all directions. However, Yin Yang did not care. He did not take it to heart at all. They were just ants. Even if they came, he could just kill them easily. Third uncle was still panting with difficulty, but a joyful smile hung on the corners of his lips. This old man doesn't ask for the prosperity of my family, doesn't ask to be invincible in this world. My biggest wish is to see Lei Junming beheaded in front of me. I thought that the heavens were blind, and that the scourge would live for 1,000 years. But I didn't expect the heavens to fulfill my wish. The heavens have been kind to me, kind to me. This old man has dreamed of this beast dying in front of me countless times. When I opened my eyes again, there was only disappointment. I never thought that there would be a day when this beast's life would really be decided by my words. The heavens haven't let me down. The heavens haven't let me down. He guffawed. Lei Junming. Oh Lei Junming, you heartless beast. Have you ever thought that you would have such a day? Amidst his laughter, a strange glint flashed across his gaze as he looked at Yin Yang. Lei Junming slumped on the ground and snorted coldly. Lei Mufeng, since you're here for revenge, what's the point of wasting words? Just do it. What's the point of having a glib tongue? Do you want to torture me for revenge? Just go ahead and make your move. See if this family head will say anything. Third uncle smirked coldly and enunciated each word clearly. Lei Junming, you're wrong. I've never planned to torture you. You're torturing our bodies because you want to obtain and know. But I know everything you want to obtain and know. But you're destined to never know the answer. You'll be a muddled ghost even if you become a ghost. I really have no intention of torturing you. I only want you, a beast that's worse than pigs and dogs, to die early and not live in this world. That's enough. Third uncle struggled, his eyes glinting with extreme viciousness. He supported himself on the ground with one hand, trying to prop up his crippled body as he panted. Give me a saber. This old man wants to send him on his way with my own hands. Yin Yang took a step forward and helped his third uncle up. In actual fact, most of the third uncle's body was pressed against Yin Yang's shoulder. Only his skeletal hand stretched out stubbornly. Yin Yang wanted to fulfill his wish, placing the divine edge in his third uncle's hand. Third uncle tried his best to lift the saber, but he could not even lift it. He said with difficulty, Mufeng, third uncle can't make it. You must remember, if there's an enemy in the future, don't give him a chance to stand up. Although it's cruel to eliminate the root of the problem, it's done once and for all. Remember this. In the future, if your subordinates have ulterior motives, they must be dealt with at once. Don't give him any chance to go against you. Your father wasn't ruthless enough. He fell into Lei Junming's trap because of a bit of soft-heartedness. I've reminded him many times, but he never believed me, always thinking about the same bloodline. It's better to kill the wrong person than to let him go. Even if it's cruel, it can guarantee you a long life in this martial world. Only survival is the most important thing. Before he could finish speaking, the tip of the knife in third uncle's hand was already pressed against Lei Junming's throat. Third uncle mustered all his remaining strength to stab downwards, but he was already at the end of his rope. Even though the knife was aimed at Lei Junming's throat, it was like an arrow at the end of its flight. It couldn't pierce through the white silk robe, and couldn't pierce through Lei Junming's throat. Yin Yang agreed in a low voice, and pressed on his third uncle's hand. With a soft puff, blood splattered, and Lei Junming's head directly rolled off. Third uncle's arm swayed, his saber falling to the ground with a clang. He chuckled bitterly. No, this old man's life is at stake, there's no turning back. However, it's enough to see Lei Junming die in my own hands. He watched Yin Yang sheath his saber, his murky gaze revealing an indescribable weariness as he said, Mufeng, bring us out and find a few soft beds for us to lie on. We haven't laid down and rested for more than a decade. Let us rest well in the last moments of our lives. Yin Yang's heart ached as he said, All right. As for these people, you can deal with them as you see fit. With your current cultivation, no one in the Lei family can stop you from doing anything. Third great uncle closed his eyes tiredly. Mufeng, you're good. Really good. The rest of them, upon seeing Lei Junming's death, had completely relaxed and fainted. Thankfully, the lingering air of vitality still lingered in them, allowing them to live a little longer. Yin Yang thought quickly and constructed a dense qi bed with mystical qi, placing all 6 of them on it. After some thought, he made another bed and threw Lei Dongtian and the rest on it with their meridians sealed. Lei Dongtian cursed incessantly, his mouth full of obscenities. "Kill me if you dare. Lei Mufeng, you cowardly tortoise bastard, I look down on you. Even if you win now, I will still look down on you. Do it, why don't you dare to do it?" Yin Yang was annoyed listening to them, so he sealed their voices as well, dragging the 2 invisible mystical qi beds as he walked out. Outside the dungeon, there was already a large crowd of people gathered. However, Yin Yang really did not care about these people. Just like what third uncle had said, with the cultivation base that Yin Yang had displayed, the entire Lei family could not stop him from doing anything. When the Lei family's reinforcements saw Yin Yang coming out and recognized him as an unfamiliar face, they could not help but swarm forward, intending to tear Yin Yang into pieces. It was a pity that the gap between their abilities and Yin Yang's was too wide. Yin Yang's eyes were filled with murderous intent as the divine edge shot out once again, turning into a sharp saber light. The saber light that was hundreds of feet long spun and danced in the air. Wherever it went, only death could be seen. In less than 100 breaths' time, the hundreds of Lei family's reinforcements were all killed by Yin Yang with a single slash. Yin Yang's merciless massacre had led to another result. The air of karma that he had not seen for a long time surged towards Yin Yang like rivers flowing into the ocean. The intensity made Yin Yang feel as if he had slaughtered an entire army. Yin Yang's massacre this time was intense, but he did not kill any experts. The highest cultivation base he had killed was only at the level of a saint, but the air of karma that he had harvested was bountiful, especially when he had assisted third uncle in killing Lei Junming. The intense air of karma almost made Yin Yang feel as if he had killed thousands of people. This result could only mean that not only was Lei Junming guilty and deserving of death, the entire Lei family was also a family of evil and deserved to die. Yin Yang continued to kill as he walked out. Along the way, the number of people who had lost their lives to Yin Yang's saber had exceeded 2,000. The air of karma that he had obtained from this round of massacre was so rich that it made Emmy in the space gasp in surprise. How long had it been? It had been so long since it had such a bountiful harvest. What was going on outside? Had its master turned into a god of slaughter? This was too much. According to Tianxian Continent's calculation, had he killed hundreds of thousands of villains in a short period of time? Yin Yang continued his massacre, killing all the way to the Lei family's main residence. His murderous intent did not diminish at all. The boundless murderous intent made the surviving members of the Lei family afraid to make a move. At this moment, every living person's face was deathly pale, and they were trembling. Yin Yang's powerful Holy King deific sense enveloped the entire Lei family's residence. No one could escape. Those who had tried to escape were all killed by a flash of saber light, their heads separated from their bodies. For a moment, the entire Lei family's residence had turned into a gigantic cage. The entire Lei family was like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. No one could even think of escaping. They could only wait for the end of their lives to come. The accumulated stench of blood grew thicker, spreading dozens of miles away. The stench of blood in the Lei family's main residence was so thick that it was suffocating. Yin Yang stood proudly in the center of the Lei family's residence and ordered, "The few of you come over here. Bring a few big beds out from the rooms." After being pointed at by him, the few of them were so frightened that their eyes rolled back, and they fainted on the ground. Yin Yang snorted and swung his saber casually, killing all those who had fainted. He then pointed at a few more people. Having learned their lesson, the newly appointed people scrambled to bring a few big beds out. Yin Yang carefully carried his third granduncle and the others onto them and settled them down. The 6 of them laid on the soft beds, moaning in comfort in unison. The person who had been begging for mercy sighed comfortably and suddenly guffawed, saying, "So comfortable, so comfortable. To be able to have such a day, this life is worth it. I have no regrets even if I die." He continued to guffaw. the vibration of his laughter affecting his entire body. The bones in his calves suddenly broke from the tibia. However, he did not feel it at all, still laughing heartily. I've begged for mercy for more than 10 years, but no one believed me. Or maybe you all are just looking down on my ambition. The person laughed, tears rolling down his cheeks. But I really don't know Lei Junping. I just happened to pass by that day. I didn't even know that there was a Lei family here. Just like that, I was captured and imprisoned for 13 years. I was tortured and interrogated for 13 years. Ha 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 ha. This world is so interesting, so interesting. 2 streaks of tears rolled down his cheeks amidst the laughter. Then his laughter stopped, his breathing stopped, and his life ended. Third great-uncle's withered hair shook, and he used all his strength to slowly turn his head. He looked at the person who had just been laughing, but had now completely stopped. His lips squirmed and he murmured, "I'm sorry." "We're sorry, we've always looked down on you. You've always been begging for mercy. But even we didn't think that you're really innocent, that everything was an undeserved misfortune." The other 4 were in a similar state, all of them unconscious. Perhaps they had fallen asleep, or perhaps they had fallen asleep. Third granduncle looked at Yin Yang with an indescribable look in his eyes as he murmured, "Mufeng, come here." Yin Yang walked closer to him. "Block off the people around us. I don't want anyone other than you to hear this secret. Even if you don't care, I still don't want to." Third granduncle's breath grew weaker as he spoke. "All right." With a wave of Yin Yang's hand, a thick layer of mystical qi sealed off the space. Clouds and mist appeared, blocking the vision of the rest of the people present. Although it was only the first time he had met this third granduncle, Yin Yang was filled with respect for him, including the other 4 people. Facing such inhumane torture, he had persevered for 13 years, never yielding. What kind of perseverance was this? Just this persistence alone was enough to make anyone in this world feel deep respect for him. This was not something an ordinary person could do. Yin Yang asked himself if he had been in his shoes, he might not have been able to persevere and endure it. Perhaps, he would have committed suicide the moment he knew that it was impossible, saving himself from the piecemeal torture and hopeless wait. "I know that you're not Mufeng." Third granduncle looked at Yin Yang. Despite his words, his gaze was warm. Chapter 1173. Yin Yang was silent for a moment. "Why do you think so? Mufeng never calls me third granduncle. He only calls me third grandfather." A bitter smile hung on third granduncle's face. "As for the other 4, you obviously don't know any of them. If it were Mufeng, he'd only act more intimately. Although your kindness and sincerity towards us are genuine, you still feel like your family." His lifeless eyes looked at Yin Yang. "We can feel your kindness, but we can also feel the distance between us. Don't you think so?" Yin Yang could not help chuckling helplessly. His deliberate disguise was only to deceive Lei Junming and the others, to give them the feeling that a blood debt must be paid with blood. He did not expect to deceive third great-uncle and the others. The reason why he did not take the initiative to tell them was because he was afraid that it would agitate them and hasten their deaths. No matter how well he disguised himself, he would never be able to deceive his loved ones. This had always been a maxim in the martial world. "I believe there's no such thing as kindness without a reason. Even if you're not Mufeng, you must be related to him." "Then what about Mufeng? Who are you?" Third granduncle looked at Yin Yang with hopeful eyes. Yin Yang's gaze dimmed. "I'm Lei Mufeng's sworn brother. He's the 6th among us brothers and I'm the 9th. Looking at the old man's hopeful gaze, Yin Yang's lips quivered before he finally said, "6th brother. Has passed away for many years." The joy in third granduncle's eyes was extinguished like the last embers of his flame. "Passed away for many years." These words were like the straw that broke the camel's back. His entire body trembled. He wanted to say something but no words came out. He could only sigh and close his eyes. At that moment he felt hopeless. Yin Yang sighed as well. He did not want to say it, but he had to. After all, he was not 6th brother. Yin Yang would not think it was too much if he were to take over this identity and obtain all the Lei family's resources. In fact, with his current wealth, he did not care much for the Lei family's belongings. However, in the eyes of third granduncle and the others, They would always fall into the hands of outsiders. Therefore, he had to make this clear. Third granduncle, what do you all want to do with the remaining Lei family members? Yin Yang asked softly. This sentence conveyed a message. I'm just here to help. The Lei family's matters are still up to you. I won't interfere. Yin Yang was not thinking too much about it. Instead, he was trying to eliminate any unpleasantness from the smallest details. This was the first time Yin Yang had racked his brain to consider the feelings of those who were much weaker than him. I care about your feelings, I care about all your decisions, because you are my sixth brother's family. I want to kill everything for my sixth brother, but I'm not his blood relative. I don't represent everything. Yin Yang could clearly sense that the chi of vitality he had injected earlier was rapidly dispersing. The foundation of these people's cultivation method had long collapsed. Once the last bit of chi of vitality was exhausted, they would be completely helpless to turn the situation around. In other words, if he didn't clear up his funeral arrangements during this period of time, he really wouldn't have a chance. Especially when their minds were completely relaxed, their bodies would only deteriorate at an even faster rate. Third granduncle closed his eyes and murmured, "The thunder seal is in the ancestral hall, under the ancestor's stone tablet. As for the remaining Lei family members," third granduncle's soft voice was almost inaudible. "Kill them all. I only feel disgusted when I see the Lei family like this. Such a bloodline shouldn't exist." He closed his eyes and murmured, "Thank you. You are Mufeng, my best brother. This old man believes." Yin Yang suddenly felt a surge of relief. "So, I can completely represent Lei Mufeng now." Yin Yang said sincerely, "I believe that Lei Mufeng will not object to any of my decisions." Third granduncle smiled in relief. "This old man believes you." He rolled his eyes, as if using the last of his strength to murmur, "Mufeng, exterminate the Lei family. Exterminate them, don't leave them in this world." His murky eyes looked at Yin Yang. Suddenly, his gaze became extraordinarily clear and sharp. He straightened his back and shouted, "A filthy family is not worthy of the surname Lei." His voice was loud, shaking the air. Then it stopped abruptly. Third granduncle's last words were still echoing in the air, but all signs of life had ceased. His soul had left the underworld, and he had passed away. The other four people were lying on the soft bed. They had stopped breathing even before third granduncle. They had gone to the netherworld with a smile amidst the rest that they had longed for the most. However, Yin Yang could see that the four of them were still listening with their eyes wide open when third granduncle uttered his last words. It was only when they heard third granduncle's last words that they finally closed their eyes in peace. "A filthy family is not worthy of the surname Lei. Is this what you all want to see? But all of you have given me a huge problem." Yin Yang stood up, his expression solemn. "Kill them all. Could he?" Yin Yang did not think that he was a ruthless person, but he was still hesitant in the face of such a request. He would not show mercy to those who could fight him, but how could he deal with those who had no combat ability at all? Scanning the few Lei family members who had survived, there was no one among them whose cultivation base had reached the level of supreme acme. All of them were trembling, and their faces were deathly pale, almost devoid of any color. Yin Yang heaved a sigh. With a casual slap, 3 of the 4 people that Lei Junming had brought into the secret chamber were smashed into mincemeat, leaving only Lei Dongtian. When Lei Dongtian woke up and realized that he was lying on the bed, he moved subconsciously to confirm that his legs were indeed gone. Everything that had happened before was not a nightmare, but reality. For a moment, it felt like a dream. It took him a long time before his eyes regained clarity. "What is going on? Who are you? Who are you?" Lei Dongtian roared. A purple robe appeared before his eyes. It was Yin Yang. "Brother Lei, you're awake?" The voice was cold. "Brother Yin, did you save me?" Lei Dongtian's ferocious expression disappeared. His eyes filled with gratitude and kindness. Yin Yang was stunned for a moment. Then he carefully checked his mental energy, and finally confirmed that this fellow did not suspect him at all. He seemed to be the only outsider in this realm. Why did he not suspect him at all? Yin Yang expressed extreme incomprehension towards Lei Dongtian's mentality. Could it be that the backlash of the 7 emotions was so domineering? Yes, it's a pity that I was a step too late. I couldn't save the others in time. Yun Yang criticized in his heart, but his face was sorrowful as he sighed. Lei Dongtian's face was full of gratitude. He sighed and said, I already knew that you were the only one who could save people from Lei Mufeng's hands. In the entire Lei family, only you and Lei Mufeng could speak. It was the same when facing the pressure of the Four Seasons Tower's Four Supremes, and it's the same with Lei Mufeng today. Brother Yin has saved my life again and again. You're my great benefactor, my savior. I'm ashamed. Yun Yang sighed. I've only saved Brother Lei alone. The Lei family can't be considered to have survived. Lei Dongtian's bloodless face showed a hint of viciousness. How are the others? Other than the women and children, all the cultivators and martial artists of the Lei family in their prime are gone. Yun Yang sighed compassionately. There are mountains of corpses and seas of blood, broken limbs and wreckage. I wanted to save a few more people, but no matter how I begged, Brother Lei only promised to spare your life. He wouldn't spare another person, Yun Yang said sadly. Lei Dongtian gritted his teeth. Where's Lei Mufeng? He's gone. Yun Yang said. He seemed to have gone to find a doctor to save those who were dying. I could see that he was very familiar with them and was very concerned about them. Lei Dongtian stretched out his hand and caressed his broken leg. The muscles on his face twitched as the intense pain struck him, giving him a hysterical impulse. Brother Lei, is there any way to treat your leg? Yin Yang was worried and said, if we don't find a way to treat it soon, I might become disabled forever. Lei Dongtian said with a ferocious expression, don't worry, Brother Yin. I have a way to deal with this injury. I still need your help in this matter. Yun Yang said, as long as there is a way, as long as there is a way. Just say it. I will do my best to do it for you. Lei Dongtian panted and said, perhaps it's fated. My way of dealing with it is related to the first crisis of my life. Yun Yang thought of something and asked in surprise, Brother Lei, are you talking about the battle with the Four Seasons Tower that day? Lei Dongtian nodded and said, yes, Brother Lei is wise indeed. You understand it immediately. The surprise on Yun Yang's face did not diminish at all as he said, however, with Brother Lei's current cultivation base and level, what else in the Four Seasons Tower can catch Brother Lei's eye and be of use? Lei Dongtian endured the pain and chuckled. Brother Yin, do you still remember that I've mentioned God's bones to you back then? Yin Yang was suddenly enlightened and said, how can I not remember? Brother Lei said that the Four Seasons Towers for venerable lords possess the God's bones. That's why they have superhuman abilities. Lei Dongtian panted and said, that's right, it's the God's bones. The way of dealing with it is the God's bones. He grabbed Yun Yang's hand and said, Brother Yin, you must help me. Only you can help me now. Only the God's bones can help me stand up again. Yun Yang nodded and said, don't worry, don't worry. I will help you with this. When your injuries are slightly healed and your life is no longer in danger, I will carry you out to look for the God's bones. Even if it's 1,000 mountains and 10,000 rivers, I must find it. Lei Dongtian was touched and said, thank you, brother, but there's no need to be so troublesome. My current injuries are suitable for the implantation of the God's bones. He smiled sinisterly. I believe that Lei Mufeng would never have dreamed that during the period when my father was in power, our Lei family had grasped the location of the entrance to the God's graveyard. As long as I obtain the God's bone to reattach my broken limbs, not only will I be able to immediately regain my ability to walk, but I will also be able to use the God's bone to strengthen my bones. Is there such a solution? Of course, I can help Brother Lei get the God's bones. But Brother Lei has mentioned before that both the 7 emotions praxis and the implantation of the God's bones are unorthodox methods that rely on external forces. Brother Lei, do you really want to do this? Yun Yang said with a considerate expression. Will it affect your future cultivation base advancement? Lei Dongtian looked comforted and said in a low voice, the present cannot be compared to the past. Although the cultivation method passed down by the old ancestor is marvelous, it can't mend a broken limb. Besides, I urgently need to improve my ability now. Although the God's bones is not the right way, it is the method that suits my current condition the best. I have no other choice. It's a pity that I can't cultivate the cultivation method passed down by the old ancestor anymore. But the gods' bones mostly come with their own unique properties and cultivation methods. It's not that I can't use other people's skills to improve myself. Lei Dongtian gritted his teeth and said, getting the gods' bones now is a must. Lei Mufeng, I will make you regret it 3 years later. Yunyang said, Brother Lei, have you really decided? Is this really okay? I've decided. Let's do it this way. Lei Dongtian said fiercely. Actually, there's another consideration in my decision to transplant the gods' bones. Back then, my family had tried to implant the gods' bones into me. Back then, I couldn't stand the pain, so I switched to the 7 emotions praxis, which made it difficult for my cultivation base to reach a higher level. This time, Lei Mufeng has mercilessly chopped off my legs. He's cut off all my other paths of retreat. I can only go forward on this path. If I don't take this path, I'll be letting down this blood feud. Yin Yang said, I understand, but before we move, let's take a break first. At least you have to nurse your injuries. I really can't rest easy if we start moving so hastily. What's there to rest for? Lei Dongtian snorted. I can't move, but my life is not in danger. I don't need you to take care of me. I'll tell you the location of the entrance to the god's grave. Act as soon as you see the situation. I can't wait any longer. Yin Yang nodded. All right then. I'll do my best. As he spoke, he hesitated and said, Brother Lei Mufeng is also a good friend of mine. I still hope that if you have the ability to take revenge, I hope that you'll be merciful. A vicious glint flashed across Lei Dongtian's eyes as he said, Of course. No matter what, I have to give Brother Yun face. The location of the god's grave. The target location is on the right side of the graveyard behind the Lei residence. Lei Dongtian said. When we get there, we only need to use fresh blood to guide it, and smash it with mystical chi to attack the mountain wall on the right. When a black crack appears, we'll throw in a living creature, be it cattle or sheep. Of course, it's best to use mystical beasts as bait. When it enters, the living creature will either die on the spot, and the blood in its body will erupt in an instant. Then a narrow passage will appear. This passage can only exist for no more than a quarter of an hour. Every time it's opened, only one person can enter. When this person enters, the passage will disappear immediately as if it doesn't exist. When this person comes out, he'll have to wait for another half a month before it can be opened again. The secret of the god's grave is a top secret to the Lei family. I know the details, but I don't know how it works. I'm afraid that danger is inevitable. Brother Yin, please be careful this time. Lei Dongtian reminded him sincerely and told him to take care. Don't worry, I've remembered it all. Yin Yang's eyes flashed. At this moment, Lei Dongtian's face grew paler and paler. He had lost too much blood after all. After both his legs were broken, the bleeding did not stop for more than an hour. He had also forced himself to tell Yin Yang about the secret of the god's grave. Now, he was really on his last breath. After saying this with great difficulty, he could no longer support himself and murmured, My medicine is. Speaking of this, his spirit suddenly went into a trance. His eyes turned black, and a black mist emerged from his eyes. Then, when he looked at Yin Yang's gaze again, a strange feeling arose. It was a kind of realization, with a hint of mockery, and some other meaning. However, he was really out of breath, and could no longer support himself. With a tilt of his head, he fainted. Yin Yang was very sensitive. Lei Dongtian's strange gaze at the end made him feel a sense of alarm. What did this gaze mean? When he was exhorting Yin Yang earlier, he could still feel that the backlash from the 7 emotions praxis had not ended. He was still sincere. However, why did such a gaze suddenly appear at the end? What did it mean? What impact did it have? In the back mountain of the Lei family, Yin Yang had successfully opened the god's grave that the Lei family had hidden for a long time according to the method described by Lei Dongtian. Yin Yang had put on a great show of acting to portray brotherly love, but his real intention was not really for Lei Dongtian. His real intention was to end a karmic relationship, one that had started in the Tianxian continent and continued to this day. He hoped that today's trip would extend the life of the Tianxian continent and not end in 100 years. A passage suddenly appeared. Yin Yang held a bag in his hand, filled with the god's bones that the Lei family had retrieved from the grave all these years. Perhaps it was fated, but the Lei family had changed their cultivation method after acknowledging their ancestral roots. They no longer cared about the added power of the god's bones, and had taken out all the god's bones that they had obtained in the past, and placed them together. To Yin Yang, this situation had saved him a lot of trouble. What made Yin Yang's trip to the god's grave different from the last time was, just as Yin Yang entered, he heard a voice drifting over. "Young man, we meet again." Yin Yang smiled and said, "The vastness of the bound of universe and the depth of the cultivation level are far beyond my expectations. The preparation time is much longer than expected. It's been a long time. I'm glad that the seniors don't blame me." Of course, he could tell that this voice was exactly the same as the one he had heard the last time he entered. It was obviously coming from the same person. As expected, a faint silhouette appeared in midair following the voice. What was even more different from the last time was that it was not just one silhouette that appeared this time. After the silhouette appeared, countless blurry silhouettes appeared. "Thank you, benefactor." The countless remnant souls in the air bowed at the same time. Yin Yang dared not be negligent. He put down the god's bones and returned the greeting solemnly. Yin Yang's search for the remains of the seniors was merely a matter of convenience. "I don't deserve such a heavy gift from the seniors. I don't dare to accept it." "This is the gratitude you deserve." The elder's silhouette in the air shook his head lightly. "For so many years, the savior we've yearned for is only you. This gratitude is the only gift we can give you in return. Perhaps the humans now don't know how to treasure it, but we must." The elder's silhouette was filled with sorrow. When humans know how to treasure such people and such sentiments, perhaps everything will be too late. Too late. Yin Yang was silent for a moment before he said, "There are many people like this in this world. It's just that I'm the only one you've met, seniors. It's just fate." The elder chuckled. "Perhaps." Without further ado, Yin Yang took out the god's bones from his bag and placed them on the ground one by one. Instantly, the god's bones glowed brilliantly. It was unknown if it was because they had returned to their original bodies and where they had come from. "Thank you, young man. These are probably the only god's bones that were scattered from this area. There's nothing left out." The elder glanced at them, but did not move. A breeze blew and the god's bones floated in the air, quietly scattering in all directions. Many of the graves that had been excavated closed immediately after the god's bones were returned to them, glowing faintly. After a while, the god's bones returned and the tomb closed up again. A few silhouettes gradually appeared in the air. They were illusory figures, but their gazes were filled with gratitude when they looked at Yin Yang, as if they were real. "I plan to destroy this passage immediately when I go out this time." This was to prevent future generations from accidentally disturbing the tranquility of the seniors. "I wonder if the seniors have any way to teach me?" Yin Yang asked respectfully. The elder said softly, "Just follow what you did last time. Use the divine weapon to cut the space apart. It's fine as long as the space cracks appear." "Very well, this junior understands." The seniors have mentioned that there are a few other exits like this in the bound of universe. "I wonder how many there are, and where they are located?" Yin Yang asked. "There are 3 more." The elder answered quickly. "However, due to some kind of restriction, I can't tell you. Where are the 3 exits? I'll have to trouble you to find them yourself." It's all right. This junior will do his best to undo the senior's shackles as soon as possible," Yin Yang replied. After a pause, Yin Yang cupped his fists and said, "Today's trip has been successful. This junior shall not delay any further. I shall take my leave now." The elder looked at him warmly and said, "The time limit for entering and exiting the passage is ineffective against you. Since you're here, why not stay a little longer?" Yin Yang replied, "This junior has just come to the bound of universe. Although my ability has improved, at the same time, I've realized that my cultivation base is still too low. The bound of universe is filled with experts and dangers. I must seize the time to improve myself, so that I can deal with everything in the future." The elder nodded slowly. That's true. Your cultivation base can be considered strong among humans, but it's only applicable to ordinary people. There are too many people in this world who can threaten your life and safety, he said rather sheepishly. It's a pity that we can't give you any help. Yin Yang laughed. What are you talking about, senior? A martial artist's journey in the martial world has always been one man's journey. One has to rely on oneself for everything. If one were to rely on someone else, they're destined not to go too far once they're worried. As he spoke, he waved. Senior, we'll meet again next time. As his voice trailed off, he turned and left gracefully, not taking a single cloud with him. As they watched Yin Yang's silhouette disappear into the entrance, one of the shadows asked in confusion, Stellar Lord, this child is so righteous. Why didn't you tell him that he's already blessed by God? Blessed by God means that he has an immortal body. This is also our repayment to him. Why didn't you tell him? This is also the only compensation we can do for our benefactor. Blessed by God? It's just our gratitude. Perhaps it's a great benefit to others, but it's not important to him. The old man shook his head and said, he didn't ask for anything in return when he helped us. He just wanted to help us. This kind of benevolent heart, this kind of state of mind, is the most precious and flawless heart. It's also because his heart is complete and flawless that he can carry out what he thinks is right to the end, not for benefits or hardships. If we tell him that he's already blessed by God because he helped us, then we'll be destroying his flawless state of mind instead. He's doing this without any selfish motives. He's only doing it for the sake of helping those in danger. How could he be greedy for our repayment? I hope that he'll continue to roam the martial world and do everything with this flawless and guiltless mentality. The elder smiled and said, this is the only thing we can do for him. I hope you won't destroy it. All the shadows nodded. Everyone thought about what the leading elder had said seriously. Everyone knew how to speak the truth, but knowing and understanding it was one thing. Those who knew how to apply it correctly were few and far between. Yin Yang exited the god's grave empty-handed. With a swing of his saber, hundreds of thousands of saber energies rampaged. Cracks appeared in the vacuum, intertwining and forming a black hole. Yin Yang was still worried, so he tried to use the previous method to open the god's grave, only to find that he could not open it. I hope you can rest in peace inside. Within 100 years, I'll return the rest of the god's bones intact. The doomsday of the gods will not come true. Yin Yang prayed silently in his heart. Then, the purple silhouette leisurely walked past, still not taking a single cloud with it. In the spacious lay residence, only a portion of the old, weak, sick, women and children were left. Everyone looked at this silhouette with a fearful gaze. Yin Yang had only walked past them, but everyone could not help but tremble. They had a thought in their hearts. The person in front of them was a devil that they could not fight against. Just yesterday, he slaughtered more than 3,000 people from the Lei family, without batting an eyelid. Yin Yang quietly returned to Lei Dongtian's small courtyard. Lei Dongtian was not resting. Although he was lying on the bed with his eyes closed, his face was full of gloom. Obviously, he was plotting something. Yin Yang walked in slowly. Lei Dongtian only moved his eyeballs and glanced at him. Although it was just a glimpse, Yin Yang could acutely feel that Lei Dongtian's gaze was completely different from before. There was no longer the deep friendship of a brother in his gaze, only hatred that was etched into his bones. The previous friendly gaze was nowhere to be seen. Yin Yang frowned, but his heart relaxed a little. Brother Lei. Yin Yang walked in. You're awake. Lei Dongtian snorted and turned to look at Yin Yang. His face was full of joy and surprise. Brother Yin, you're back? Did you get the god's bones? This exclamation of joy was full of hypocrisy. Yin Yang looked at Lei Dongtian for a moment and suddenly smiled. He said faintly, Brother Lei, your backlash has been lifted? So soon? Lei Dongtian's expression suddenly became flustered. He stared at Yin Yang and asked, what backlash? Yin Yang smiled faintly and said, Brother Lei, don't lie in front of a smart person. It's very boring. Do you think you can fool me? That you want me to work for you? Lei Dongtian was silent. Yin Yang said regretfully, it's a pity that Brother Lei's state of mind hasn't recovered at the right time. The kindness you've expressed to me previously came from your heart. It's hard for me to kill you. At the very least, you could have obtained a painless death. But what can you do now? Filled with resentment and rage. You're just going to another world, with such negative emotions. Why do you have to do this? Lei Dongtian gritted his teeth. Yin Yang, I've always treated you as a friend, a brother, Yin Yang chuckled. I've never denied it. Whether it was your deliberate act in Tianxian continent, using me as a cauldron, or the backlash of the cultivation method, and how you treated me wholeheartedly, it was all the result of your own choice. What does it have to do with anyone else? Lei Dongtian raised his head in shock. When you chose me to be your cauldron on the first day, I already knew what was going on. You were just feigning civility, Yin Yang said slowly. Back then, I wasn't strong enough and could only deal with you. Now the situation is reversed. It's your life that's hanging in my hands. However, I'm curious about something else. The backlash caused by the 7 emotions praxis. When you saw me again, the backlash suddenly broke out. However, it's only been a few days and it's all gone. It's not without reason. What is it? Lei Dongtian's face was dark, his eyes staring at Yin Yang like 2 black holes. Yin, you actually came with Lei Mufeng, didn't you? He did not wait for Yin Yang to answer and said directly, everything that's happened to the Lei family now is all because of the 2 of you colluding and coveting the opportunity. First, you appeared to attract attention to confirm the situation, and the Lei family's current real combat power. After confirming it, Lei Mufeng made his move and annihilated the entire Lei family. What the 2 of you have done, it's simply deliberate and heartless. You're not human. Lei Dongtian gritted his teeth in hatred. Yin Yang smiled faintly. And said, Brother Lei is flattering us. What are our tricks? When your father colluded with others to harm our family head, and even killed Lei Mufeng's parents and siblings, did he not realize his own scheming and insanity? Who's the one who's even more inhumane? Lei Dongtian looked at him with resentment and suddenly shouted hysterically, I'm blind. I actually know you. Yin Yang sighed. You're blind indeed. If you weren't, how could you have chosen me to be your cauldron the first time we met? If it wasn't for this, who knows who would know who you are? He seemed to be deep in thought as he said, You've already regained your consciousness, yet you don't want to escape. Instead, you're still staying here. It should be because you've lost too much blood. Your profound energy has been completely depleted, so you don't have the strength to escape even if you wanted to. As for the backlash, you'll only be able to face the backlash if you have a high cultivation base. In your current state, you're basically crippled. Are you telling me that the backlash is gone as well? He grabbed Lei Dongtian's wrist and checked. As expected, Lei Dongtian's power was gone. Even his physical strength was extremely weak. He was basically a useless man. I see. It's probably because my cultivation base has fallen to a low point, and I don't have any mystical chi or spiritual power left. So the backlash is gone. I'm the one who's overthinking things. Yin Yang sighed and said with a face full of pity, Lei Dongtian, luck really isn't up to you. If you've always maintained that sense of loyalty, I'll feel unbalanced even if I kill you. And I'll feel sorry for your sincerity. Now that you've woken up, you're destined to die a horrible death. I'll kill a fake brother for my real brother. I won't be merciful. What do you think? Lei Dongtian glared at him and growled like a wolf. Do it. Why aren't you killing me yet? What's the point of me living like this? What's the difference between me and being dead? How can there be no point in living? Don't you still have God's grave? Yin Yang said patiently. A glimmer of hope flashed in Lei Dongtian's eyes. You've got God's bones? I've indeed found God's grave, but I didn't bring back any piece of God's bones. God's bones are what you need. Why would I really fulfill your wish? Yin Yang said regretfully. When I heard you mention that you could use God's bones to recover, and even increase your ability, how could I not react and completely eliminate this hidden danger? So I followed your instructions and found God's grave. Then, I destroyed the entrance permanently. He said regretfully, It's such a pity. No one can enter such a wonderful place in the future. Lei Dongtian stared at him, his eyes unblinking. The crack in space has eliminated the entrance directly, Sigh. Yin Yang sighed. I didn't want this to happen either. You must be very disappointed, but I can't console you. Pfft. Lei Dongtian spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at Yin Yang in grief and indignation, his fingers trembling. There was hope in the midst of despair, but it disappeared right after. He was plunged into an atmosphere of extreme despair without any hope. This was probably Lei Dongtian's current situation. Don't be indignant. Yin Yang slapped his head, splattering his brains with a loud crack. Your grief and indignation now can only increase my pleasure. But I don't want to get carried away by your flattery. If I get carried away by your indignation, it'll be a huge disadvantage for me as I roam the martial world. A man can be proud, confident, and even arrogant, but he can never be complacent and think too highly of himself. Lei Dongtian only twitched a little before he stopped moving. I really didn't want to kill you so soon. However, the things that your family has done make me really unable to resist the urge to eliminate you all. An unprecedentedly strong air of karma surged into the deific consciousness space the moment a certain person's breath died. Emmy cried out in surprise. Ayya. Just half more and it would be enough to level up. The corners of Yin Yang's lips twitched. F***ck. Such a huge harvest was only half of it. This level up was really slow. Still, I've gotten rid of you. When I see Lingxi, I should report this good news to her. The Lei family's ancestral hall. Smoke filled the air. Lei Dongtian, his father, and the others were naturally not qualified to enter this place again. The memorial tablet at the front was Lei Juanping's memorial tablet, that Lei Junming had long thrown away. Beside him were Lei Muyu, Lei Muyin, Lei Mufeng, the memorial tablets of third granduncle, and the others were also placed in a more eye-catching position. Yin Yang lit the incense piously. I wish for sixth brother's family to be reunited. If you feel this wish, please be comforted. Xiao Jiu will help you end this grudge. I hope that we can still be brothers in our next life. I'll wait for you. The tombstones of Lei Mufeng's family members were also re-erected in the Lei family's graveyard. I hope that the Lei family can live your life well in the future. Walk the right path and don't go down the wrong path. Looking at the remaining people of the Lei family, Yin Yang said in a low voice. He did not advise them. For these women and children of the Lei family, advice was useless and meaningless. There was only irreconcilable hatred between them. Even if Yin Yang had thousands of words of advice, the Lei family would only obey them. At the end of the day, the future of the Lei family was in their hands. As for Yin Yang, he would not care about all the decisions of the Lei family. In the future, when the Lei family walked the right path, Yin Yang would send someone to help them. However, if they walked the wrong path, or insisted on seeking revenge, Yin Yang would not be merciful. Today, I will let you live because you are sixth brother's family members. If you seek revenge against me in the future, then I will carry out the last instruction of the Lei family. Kill all of you. Everything depends on yourself. Yin Yang did not follow his third granduncle's instructions and annihilate every single member of the Lei family, regardless of their size. After all, this was sixth brother's family. If he really killed them all, it would completely cut off the bloodline of sixth brother's family. With only these women and children left in the Lei family, it would take a very, very long time for them to rise again. Your future path can only depend on your own choices. Work hard and walk on your own path. The moment Yin Yang walked out of the Lei family's door, he saw three people. 2 men and a woman. The one in the lead was a woman, graceful and beautiful. Who else could she be but Miss Bai, who lived in the Lei family's plum garden? On both sides of Miss Bai were 2 men who were slowly approaching. Yin Yang did not know them, but they should be Miss Bai's companions. Sect leader Yin, you are really ruthless. Miss Bai was dressed in white. She looked at Yin Yang coldly, her eyes filled with an unconcealable murderous intent. I didn't expect that the foppish playboy whom Lei Dongtian regards as his own brother is actually the rising star of our bound of universe, who has recently risen to fame, the new leader of a middle-class celestial luck banner. He is indeed a famous figure. Yin Yang said faintly, since you know that you are a big shot, then cut the nonsense. My time is very precious. Do you want to worship me up close? I can give you some time. considering that we have known each other for a while. He looked at Miss Bai. From the beginning until now, he had felt an inexplicable aura from her. Yun Yang did not like this aura. However, he did not understand what kind of aura it was. Miss Bai's pretty face grew colder. She sneered and said, "Sect leader Yun, you have made a name for yourself at a young age. The residence of 9 Supremes has been promoted 3 times in a day, straight to the middle class. Your future is extremely bright, and you can be said to be a new legend in the bound of universe. However, I really don't know if you are lucky or unfortunate to die here today." Yun Yang was not offended at all. He laughed heartily and said, "If the few of you have the ability to kill me, why would you wait until now to appear? Why raise your status and make a fool of yourselves?" Once he said that, the 3 men's faces darkened. Honestly, none of them wanted to appear so late. It was not that they were not capable enough or brave enough, but it was because of a freak combination of factors that they had hit the mark by a stroke of luck. In the beginning, they did not know Yun Yang's identity. Although they were vigilant, they did not take Yun Yang seriously. They did not want to lose the big picture because of a small mistake and cause their plan to be biased. In fact, they had already gone to inquire about Yun Yang's news at the first instance. Otherwise, they would not have learned of Yun Yang's specific information after only a day, and they would not have rushed over to investigate. They could only blame Yun Yang for acting too quickly. By the time Miss Bai and the others arrived, the entire Lei residence had already turned into a sea of blood. All the core members of the Lei family were completely wiped out. The only survivor, Lei Dongtian, had his leg broken and was crippled. It was an unimaginable feat. Logically speaking, with Lei Dongtian's attitude towards Yun Yang, even if this young Master Yin had something to do, he would at least inquire about the news in the Lei residence and confirm the situation. After a few days, he would make some preparations before taking any specific action. This was human nature and the norm of things. Who would have thought that this sect leader Yin would be so impatient? He had just met Lei Dongtian during the day, called him brother, and went to see Lei Dongtian's sweetheart together. It was only at night that he started killing without a word. There was no hesitation when he raised the butcher's knife, killing everything along the way. They were still waiting for the news from above, but before the news arrived, the Lei family had already been slaughtered cleanly. Who do you think you can reason with about this? The previous news was that a young man named Yun Yang, who was on good terms with Lei Dongtian, had come to the Lei residence. Please investigate Yun Yang's background and see if you need to take him down to avoid deviating from the established plan. The reply was as follows. Yun Yang, the leader of the newly promoted residence of 9 Supremes, a middle-class celestial luck banner sect. Since he had come to the Lei residence and was on good terms with Lei Dongtian, there was no need to care about him. Yes, there was no need to care about this news. After receiving the news, there was no need to care. After knowing his identity, there was no need to care. As for making friends, who could be sure? Then, they suddenly heard a scream in the middle of the night. Then, they sent people to investigate and found out that the Lei residence had been slaughtered in the early hours of the morning. It was not that they did not want to stop it, but it was too late. Not only had it happened, it was already over. However, the reply from above was clear. Leave him alone. What should we do about this? Miss Bai and the others naturally asked again. Yun Yang had slaughtered the entire Lei family, leaving only Lei Dongtian alive with a broken leg. Ask for follow-up instructions. Should we still leave him alone? This time, there was no reply for a long time. It was not until the sun was high up in the sky that they finally received a reply. Lad, you spoiled my plan. Kill Yun Yang and bring Lei Dongtian back. Only after receiving specific instructions did they set out. However, when they arrived, Lei Dongtian with a broken leg was also dead, again. What should we do about this? The entire Lei family was left with the old, the weak, the sick women and children. The oldest child was only 8 or 9 years old, and he was of poor aptitude. There was no point in nurturing him. Young Miss Bai and the others had been inspecting carefully, and they were already unable to restrain their anger. It was too much. Although they did not know what the higher-ups wanted to do with the Lei family, Their rage after knowing that the Lei family had been annihilated was undeniable. Otherwise, they would not have killed Yun Yang, the leader of the residents of Nine Supremes, who was in the limelight. The few of them came in a hurry, afraid that Yun Yang would be one step ahead of them and leave without a trace. However, they were also afraid that they would implicate the remaining members of the Lei family when the battle started and further ruin the higher-ups' plan. Therefore, they chose to guard the door and wait for Yun Yang to come out. The remaining members of the Lei family were too weak. Once the battle started, even the slightest shockwave would be enough to kill them all. Yet, they did not know that the remaining people were of no use to the higher-ups. Yun Yang, why did you do this? Why have you done so much? Extreme resentment shone in Miss Bai's eyes. She could imagine what kind of punishment she would receive when she returned due to the failure of this mission. She was truly indignant. Everything had been going smoothly before this. It had been more than 2 years of smooth sailing. Had she slacked off? Why? Miss Bai, you've stayed by Lei Dongtian's side for quite some time. How can you not know what kind of family the Lei family is? How can they not have any enemies? No one came looking for the Lei family previously, not because their enemies did not want to, but because they did not have the ability to do so. I'm different from other enemies. I have the ability to seek revenge. Since I'm seeking revenge, how can I not end this grudge once and for all? Yin Yang smiled gently. You guys came with such fanfare. It's obvious that you're determined to win. It looks like you must avenge Lei Dongtian. I thought Miss Bai was just playing around with Lei Dongtian, but it turns out that you have such deep feelings for him. I've been too narrow-minded. Miss Bai almost vomited. Deep feelings for Lei Dongtian? How could it be? That fellow was like a fly. If it were not for the mission, she would have killed him with a slap long ago. You annihilate an entire family at the slightest provocation. Such a heartless act makes you the public enemy of the bound of universe. Miss Bai was enraged as she said, everyone has the right to kill such a vicious thief. Kill him. With a wave of her hand, the 2 men beside her leaped forward in unison. Once both of them attacked, they crossed their arms in front of their chests and pushed them forward. 2 waves of heaven and earth cage came crashing down at the same time, targeting Yun Yang. One of them waved his right hand, and a 9-jointed white bone whip lashed out with the sound of thunder, while the other wielded a strange-looking sword that moved like a snake, attacking all the vital points on Yun Yang's upper body in an unpredictable manner. Yun Yang snorted coldly. With a casual grab, he had already crushed the 2 heaven and earth cages. With a soft bang, his aura skyrocketed with unprecedented power. In the next moment, Yun Yang grabbed the tip of the 9-jointed bone whip and pulled the burly man over with a reverse tug, turning to face the eerie snake sword. The man wielding the oddly shaped sword retreated hastily, but Yun Yang appeared by his side like a phantom and said faintly, "This sword isn't bad. Let me play with it." The man felt his wrist go numb, and the strange sword in his hand flew out of his grasp. As he retreated in shock, he saw that his treasured sword was already in Yun Yang's hand. With a wave of his hand, the sword came down on his head. He had actually used the flexible sword as a saber. Although it was a sword-saber technique, and its attribute did not match, the strange sword's power was multiplied by several folds under the infusion of Yun Yang's powerful mystical qi. With a swoosh, the head of the man wielding the 9-jointed bone whip had already been chopped off. The moment Yun Yang's strike landed, he felt an inexplicable aura permeating the air. His hair stood on end, and he was inexplicably agitated. Yun Yang released his deific consciousness to investigate the situation within 1,000 feet radius. He was shocked to find that the decapitated man, who should have been dead for sure, was still breathing. There was no blood coming out of his neck, only an eerie mist that continued to spread. After a few breaths, another head popped out with a swoosh, its eyes glinting menacingly. And this new head that popped out was a cat's head. After the new cat's head popped out, it turned into a human's head after a few turns. What else could it be if it did not look like the burly man? An indescribable, eerie aura spread. Miss Bai and the man whose sword Yun Yang had snatched from wore an extremely ugly expression. Yun Yang took 3 steps back in shock, his expression grim. Cat's head demonic aura. You guys are actually the demon race. His gaze towards Miss Bai suddenly became unprecedentedly dangerous. Demon race? What is your intention in sneaking into the bound of universe and coming to the lay residence? He suddenly felt that he seemed to have unintentionally foiled an important plan of the demon race. Chapter 1174. In the main text, there are two of my most recent insights. I don't know if you can see them. This little new year, it's hard to explain. I got up in the morning and wrote 4,000 words. Sect leader Wei came to find me and said, "Let's play landlord." So I played landlord. I played until 11:30. I played landlord for 5 yuan and lost 200. 1 bomb for 10 yuan, 2 bombs for 15 yuan, 3 bombs for 20 yuan. I can lose 200 in this way. With my gambling skills, can you believe it? So I said, I'll write first. I'll take a break and play again when I'm lucky. Then I ate lunch and wrote 3,000 words. They said I'll play for a while. So I thought it made sense and started landlord again. Then, I lost 160 in half an hour. I thought, you guys are bullying me, right? So I said, you guys can play landlord first. I'll write for a while to make up for my losses. Another 3,000 words. It was already 4:30 in the afternoon. I wrote 10,000 words and felt very tired. So I said, let's play landlord. I lost 200 in half an hour. That's weird. I usually don't lose. Then I kept playing. All the way until the last hand. I picked up the cards and looked at them. Royals 222, AA 3333, 4556 89. Let me ask you, if you had these cards in your hands, would you call for landlord? So I called. I called for A2J. I had 3 bombs. What would you do? Of course you'd get a 4, right? Then the next player got an A. Hold on. If you were me, would you defuse the bomb? Not willing to. Then I said you'd do it. Then I met a ghost. The next player, 777,888,999, flew 3 times, with 3 orders. Damn it, what the hell? I used 3333 to blow it up. Then the next player got 4 tens and blew it up. What should I do? Of course, I used king to blow it up, right? Then I got a 6. The next player got AJ. Then the next player got 4 QS and blew it up. I didn't dare to blow it back. The previous player got a pair, which I couldn't afford. The next player got a pair of J, which I had 1 left. Then I couldn't afford a pair of aces. In the end, the previous player got 4 kings and blew it up again. I had 5 5 8 9 2 2 2 2 left in my hands. Then the next player got an order. Sigh. I didn't say any more. Anyway, I lost this card. Then I drove them all away. I wrote more than 3,000 in one night. After updating, I kept thinking about this card. Damn it. I kept thinking about it until now. I've been thinking about it for the past year. And I'm not happy at all. What am I supposed to do? Only then could he win. Remember the mobile URL. Happy little new year to everyone. P1/1. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1175. The plot outline was written clearly that Lei Dongtian still had to deal with the karma of his pursuit with Ji Lingxi in the future, which meant that Lei Dongtian's scenes were set to follow. However, I was so happy when I wrote it yesterday that I killed him. Then, the Lei family would be in cahoots with the demon race. Then, I wrote that I was so happy that I killed the entire Lei family. I'm so worried now. The demon race is out. But there's no Lei family in the follow-up plot. Let me think of a way my head is splitting. It's mainly because I was so happy yesterday that I published the entire script. Extreme joy turns to sorrow. How can I make up for it? I'll think of it tomorrow and write it. My head is in a knot today. If the other Lei families are involved, then it's meaningless for this Lei family to return to the family. However, if this Lei family is only left with the old, weak, sick, and disabled, and the description is so clear, there's no way to develop it. This whole thing is so smooth that I can write hundreds of thousands of words of plot. But I'm so happy that I've written it all out. Chapter 1176. Miss Bai's face was ashen as she hollered. Nonsense. Yin Yang, you're the demon. You came to the Lei family and annihilated an entire family, revealing the demon race's savage nature. Today, we shall enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and annihilate this villain." Following her howl, 7 to 8 silhouettes leaped over and attacked Yin Yang in unison without a word. At the same time, Miss Bai let out a loud cry as a jade-green vine appeared in her palm. There were 7 to 8 unusually green leaves on it, as she tossed them towards Yin Yang. Miss Bai was not an ordinary demon, but a plant demon that was even rarer than the Golden Condor King. Miss Bai's first move was a killing move. As soon as the vine went into the air, it suddenly turned into a sky full of green leaves that fell down, covering an area of 1,000 feet. It was a large area of effect attack. Yin Yang was surprised, but he did not slow down. He raised the divine edge in his hand. The merciless saber and the merciless Dao were executed. Countless vines and branches fell from the sky as the dense saber glint flew over. Yin Yang was also retreating quickly, obviously trying to escape from the other party's attack range. Yin Yang had been a formidable foe for a long time. He had to think of defeat before thinking of victory. Before he understood the other party's background, he had to be careful and not lose. There was most likely something fishy about the other party's attack range. It was better to observe the situation first before making further plans. The moment Yin Yang responded to the attack, thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind. The demon race? How could there be the demon race in the bound of universe's human territory? Moreover, it was not just one or two of them. The people who surrounded him were all from the demon race, and their combat power was not ordinary either. Just thinking about it was frightening. As the saying goes, one can see the big picture from the small clues. With such a large group of monster clan lurking here, with Miss Bai's cultivation and ability, she did not hesitate to spend so many years to set up a trap and deliberately make friends with Lei Dongtian. If one were to say that there was no big scheme behind it, it would not make sense. Moreover, although Miss Bai's strength was the strongest among all the demon clan members, since she had personally come here and used herself as bait, it could be concluded that she was definitely not the leader. In other words, there was at least a mastermind behind Miss Bai. Then how high would the identity of the mastermind be? How strong would he be? What exactly were they plotting? Yin Yang's saber danced as he defended himself against the 8 demons' attacks. While he was careful, his thoughts were running wild. The Lei family returned to the family 3 years ago, and changed from a third-rate family to a descendant of the Sacred Heart Palace's great elder Lei Qianli's favor and inheritance. According to Lei Dongtian, this Miss Bai came here less than 3 years ago. Her true identity is a demon. It's not difficult to tell from her words and actions that she has ulterior motives towards Lei Dongtian and the Lei family. Moreover, there's obviously someone higher up behind her. She's just someone who follows orders. The Sacred Heart Palace's great elder, Miss Bai, the demon race. Could there be any connection between these three? If we include the Sacred Heart Palace's master Zhan Wufei's secret mission, the Sacred Heart Palace's spies, and the recent frequent actions of the demon race, could there be other mysteries behind all of these? Although everything is complicated and messy, it's not impossible to sort them out. Among these, Yin Yang was deep in thought, summarizing all the information he had on hand and sorting out the crux of the matter. Should I kill all these demons? It's not appropriate. Yin Yang had a plan in mind. With his current cultivation base, Miss Bai and the other demons' combat power was not ordinary. But it was nothing to Yin Yang. If he really went all out, he could kill all of them in 100 breaths' time. However, if he really did so, all the clues would be cut off, and it would be difficult to continue. I have to think of a way. The 8 demons closed in on Yin Yang with a series of killer moves, wanting nothing more than to kill Yin Yang. Yin Yang kept retreating. It looked like he was surrounded by danger, constantly walking between life and death. But in fact, he was at ease. It looked dangerous, but he was actually safe. At the moment when the fight was about to end, Miss Bai's jade-like hand flew over like a butterfly and met Yin Yang's palm with a loud bang. Yin Yang grunted, and a trace of blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. He staggered backward, and was almost dismembered by the demons when he lost his balance. Seeing this, Miss Bai's heart was at ease. She spun around and shouted, "Go again! Those who kill him will be rewarded handsomely." Through the exchange of blows just now, she could clearly judge that although sect leader Yun's cultivation was not low, and had already reached the level of a third-grade Saint King, he was still a notch lower than her who was at the peak of a third-grade Saint King. Judging from the result of their exchange, not only did she have an easy time, she had also injured her opponent, and his combat power was no longer at its peak. Following Miss Bai's command, the other 7 people howled in unison, their swords and sabers falling down, their eyes filled with murderous intent. Yin Yang seemed to be in a precarious situation as he struggled and dodged with all his might, putting up a stubborn resistance. Even though he struggled and dodged with all his might, streaks of blood continued to fly, and he could no longer avoid them completely like before. Boom, boom, boom. After a dozen consecutive clashes, Yin Yang howled in agony as he was flung away like a kite with its string snapped. However, Miss Bai was already a step ahead of him, and had arrived at the other end of Yin Yang. With a loud bang, it was another exchange of blows. Yin Yang tried his best to block it, but heard a crack as if his entire arm had been broken. However, he straightened himself in mid-air and strangely turned in another direction, fleeing for his life towards the open space. In a flash, he had already gone 400 to 500 feet away. It seemed to be some kind of arcane skill that stimulated his life force, and he was determined to fight. Miss Bai was, of course, unwilling to let Yin Yang escape, but she had been thrown to the other side by Yin Yang's near-death experience, unable to move immediately. She hollered, "This rascal is already severely injured. He can't run far. Go after him, don't let him escape." The 7 demons obeyed and moved, turning into streaks of shadows in an instant, giving chase at lightning speed. Yin Yang sprinted swiftly, displaying his extraordinary and ever-changing movement skills, and his unpredictability. Even when there were 8 silhouettes trailing behind him, he could always find a sliver of hope and escape from the most impossible situation with his slippery skills. This infuriated the few people behind him so much that they almost spat blood. Just as they were about to catch him, he turned and ran again. Just as they were about to kill him, he slipped away again. RUAF King Loach. Chapter 1177. Miss Bai and the rest of the group of 8 pursued Yin Yang all the way. Seeing that Yin Yang's injuries were getting more and more severe, they became more desperate and refused to give up. Even when he was coughing up blood, he could still escape. The chase went on for a good half an hour, before it came to an end as Yin Yang darted into a dense forest with a swoosh. All the demons could hear was a rustling sound as it disappeared into the distance. Then there was no more sound. Of course, the demons would not give up just like that. They attacked in unison. With a loud bang, countless saber lights, sword shadows, palm strikes, and claws enveloped half of the dense forest, pulverizing countless trees within the attack range. It was a pity that other than some small animals and birds that were running for their lives, there was no other presence in the forest. It was as if Yin Yang had vanished into thin air the moment he entered the forest. Search. Miss Bai's face was ashen, her expression cold and her gaze fierce. Yin Yang is already on the brink of death. Although he has a chance to catch his breath, he can't have gone far. He must still be somewhere in this forest. Dig him out even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground today. Yes. Over the next 4 hours, the 8 demonic race experts had smashed the entire forest into smithereens. Every inch of the ground had been turned over at least 100 feet of space, but Yin Yang was nowhere to be found. Not even a trace of blood could be found. Miss Bai's gaze swept across the land that had been turned upside down, and could no longer be called a forest. A look of admiration even appeared on her exquisite face. No wonder you were able to escape the Golden Condor King's pursuit for thousands of miles. This method of escaping is truly extraordinary. However, since we know that you're in this area, you can't escape death even if you turn into dust. That night, Miss Bai and the others stayed here, and continued their search in 8 different directions. They searched inch by inch, not letting go of any suspicious spots. During this period of time, even a cat's meow would cause a huge commotion. It was obvious that they were determined to end Yin Yang's chances of survival. However, an entire day and night had passed, and there was still no trace of Yin Yang, as if he no longer existed in this world. Miss Bai and the rest of the 8 of them were so tired that they stuck out their tongues. They looked at the dense forest in front of them. No, this place could no longer be considered a dense forest. Under the continuous destruction of the great forces, it had long been smashed into a barren desert. It had even expanded to nearly twice its original size. It was a completely barren land. However, all of them had looks of disbelief on their faces. How did this guy survive such a search and hide so well? This method of concealment was simply. Previously, he was seriously injured, right? Did we severely injure him? It should be. Their voices were filled with uncertainty. Faced with the inexplicable reality, they all began to doubt themselves. Did they not hit him at all? Was he not injured at all? Or perhaps he was hiding some kind of miraculous movement speed secret technique, and had long escaped from this area. Otherwise, the current situation would be too strange. Miss Bai's expression grew darker. As someone who had the most direct combat contact with Yin Yang, she was absolutely certain that Yin Yang had been severely injured previously. This was absolutely true. However, why could they not find him? That's the strange part. She had already been questioned twice in one day and one night. The higher-ups were infuriated as they continued to berate her. Has the murderer of the Lei family been killed? We're still pursuing him. Has he been killed? We're still pursuing him. We haven't confirmed it yet. She was scolded relentlessly. By Bingxian, do you King want to die? Why do you have to force your father to swear? If you don't want to live, just say it. Miss Bai did not want to die at all, so she wanted to capture Yin Yang and kill him even more. However, the reality now was that she could not even see a trace of Yin Yang's shadow. After tormenting herself until dawn, Miss Bai, by Bingxian, and her 7 subordinates gathered in the tent, exhausted, to brainstorm and discuss the next steps. Where has Yin Yang been hiding? All 8 of them could not figure it out. He looked like he was on the brink of death. Where could he be hiding? How could there be such a strange thing in this world? It was inexplicable, inconceivable, and incomprehensible. Just as they were puzzled, a faint wisp of cloud chi was already hidden in the tent they had set up temporarily. Did Yin Yang intentionally avoid the demon's search? Absolutely not. Yin Yang had transformed into his cloud form the moment he snuck into the forest, and followed behind Miss Bai when the demons were searching for him. He had heard every single word of her questioning, including the 2 times she had questioned him. He had clearly seen Bai Bingxian take out a strange black, shuttle-shaped mystical crystal. After channeling mystical chi for some time, the tip of the shuttle gradually glowed. Then, Bai Bingxian began to report the current situation to the shuttle. She put it down after she was done. When the shuttle glowed again without warning, she channeled mystical chi into it again. An angry reprimanding voice could be heard. Have you found him now? Have you killed that child? A bunch of trash. Tell me, what else can you do? Bai Bingxian had been standing respectfully before the shuttle the entire time, accepting the reprimand. After the reprimand was done, she put it down and channeled mystical chi into it again to light it up. Then, she would either defend herself or report the new situation. This thing seems to be something good. Yin Yang's gaze glowed. It can actually transmit voice from 10,000 miles away, and it's not a one-time consumable item. However, after eavesdropping for a day and a night, they did not receive any valuable information. At least, the voice that came from the other end of the shuttle-shaped voice transmission was not Elder Lei's, but an unfamiliar low, slightly raspy voice. Each time this voice came, there was a faint demonic aura that lingered, indicating the fact that the other party belonged to the demon race. Bai Bingxian and the others expanded their search area to a radius of 2,000 miles. After searching for 5 consecutive days and nights without rest, they could not help but admit that they were at their wits' end. Once again, their efforts were futile. They could not catch him at all. There was a 99% chance that Yin Yang had already left. Bai Bingxian dared not hope that Yin Yang would die from his injuries. The chances of that happening were too slim. Not even 1 in 10,000. Even if he could die without a sound, there should still be a corpse, blood stains, and other traces of evidence. However, no matter how dejected she was, it was useless. She still had to report the latest news to the higher-ups. It's confirmed that we can't catch Yun Yang. He might have escaped, or he might have died somewhere that we can't find. This time, the reprimand that came from the other end was unprecedentedly intense. Trash. Other than flirting, you have no other use. Yun Yang might be dead? Are you fooling me or fooling yourself? The combined strength of the 8 of you is so much higher than the other party. And you've even injured him severely. But you can still lose him. You've really set a precedent for the Demon Emperor family, for hundreds of thousands of years. By Bingxian you're a female, but you've got some F*** guts. Chapter 1178. Bai Bingxuan's face turned ashen, and her entire body trembled. Her delicate face was filled with fear. She crawled on the ground, not daring to get up for a long time. The other 7 people's faces were also pale. Yun Yang was a little impressed. Who was the owner of this gloomy hoarse voice? Other things aside, his eloquence when it came to scolding people was really good. After this round of scolding, there was no follow-up movement for a long time, and no one was really sent to heaven. However, Bai Bingxian and the others still did not dare to move, only looking at each other with pale faces. After a while, the shuttle-shaped communication jade pendant lit up again. A gloomy voice came from inside. Lei family, Lei Junming and the others. How far had they progressed in cultivating the art of blood droplet before they died? Bai Bingxian answered nervously. Lei Junming's progress in the art of blood droplet was amazing. Before he died, he had already cultivated this cultivation method to the bottleneck of the 2nd level Saint King. He was only 1 step away from breaking through to the 2nd level. The others who advance faster have also cultivated to the beginner level of the 1st level Saint King. There are a total of 11 people in the Lei family, all of whom have reached the level of Saint King. As for the other juniors of the Lei family, there are 7 people whose cultivation base has reached the level of Saint King, and more than 30 people who have reached the level of honor. However, this subordinate has confirmed again and again that these people have all. The gloomy voice in the jade pendant was filled with unconcealable anger. Not a single one was left. Damn Yun Yang. There was another moment of silence on the other side. By the time it lit up again, the gloomy voice had already become a little dispirited. Tomorrow, the few of you, go to the Lei clan's main residence and dig down 99 feet to see if there's anything strange. If there is, bring it back. Yes. If there is none. If there is none, the voice repeated twice, then sighed and said, let's just directly sink the Lei clan head's residence. Yes. The next moment, the diamond-shaped communication jade pendant dimmed again. But this time, it did not light up even after a long time. However, the expressions of Bai Bingxian and the others were obviously relaxed. Some of the burly men even meowed happily a few times. Are they all workats? As the saying went, one small clue would reveal the general trend. Comparing the current situation, especially recalling the cat-headed man who had fought Owl Head previously, Yun Yang had a pretty good idea. Look closely at that Bai Bingxian. She's walking like a cat, and her movements are somewhat cat-like. But the other 5 men and 2 women don't look like it. If it wasn't for the cat meowing, it's hard to imagine. A cat. How can it be so big and burly? But Bai Bingxian isn't a cat demon, right? From the looks of it, the vine she threw out earlier should be a plant demon. Yun Yang could not help but think of his big Whitey 2 Whitey 3. That's more like it. How could these ugly and crooked people be called workats? It's finally over. One of the men meowed again and said in relief, there's another mission. It looks like the punishment this time won't be too severe. I was really afraid of being sent to heaven. Bai Bingxian actually meowed as well and sighed. My lord's mind is unpredictable. After we're done with this, we still have to try to hunt down Yun Yang. If we can capture this fellow, it'll be considered as atoning for our sins. Otherwise, when we return, even if we don't go to heaven, we won't be able to escape a whipping. Bai Bingshuan's meow shocked even Yin Yang. Was it the same? Isn't that right? I really don't know what Yin Yang is. How can he run so well? The 8 of them sighed in unison. After a while another man said, but there shouldn't be anything for tonight, right? These few days. The rest of them had a strange look on their faces. As if they were excited and expectant, Bai Bingxian said. My lord said to go to the main residence of the Lei family for work tomorrow, and has no other orders. The rest of the day is naturally free. Meow meow meow. The rest of them cheered in unison. Then the atmosphere changed. With the addition of a few extremely small beds in the tent, the 8 of them disappeared simultaneously. There were now 8 large cats in the tent. Yes, they were large cats. Every big cat's body was abnormally strong, at least 3 or 4 times bigger than an ordinary house cat. Their body hair was of all colors, white, black, gray, flowery, and everything else. They ran around in the tent, and after frolicking for a while, they each ran to their own small beds and lay down comfortably. After a while, the round fur balls emitted a snoring sound as they all fell asleep, sharing their dreams. Yin Yang's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets when he saw the scene. F***CKme. I thought you fellows wanted to do some secret activity when you asked if there was nothing for tonight. But you've all reverted to your original forms and are now sleeping? This style. It seemed that Bai Bingxian was the white cat. As for the others, their names were probably closely related to their skin color as well. Although Yin Yang had already predicted it in his heart, seeing a stunning beauty suddenly turn into a big white cat in front of him with his own eyes. The stark contrast had left even someone as composed as Yin Yang dumbfounded and in awe. The next day, Bai Bingxian and the rest woke up early and began to move impatiently, hurrying towards the Lei residence. Yin Yang was still in his cloud form, floating in the air as he followed them unhurriedly towards the Lei residence. What was the mysterious person trying to do? Perhaps today would be the day to find out. However, what was hidden beneath the main residence of the Lei family? It could not be the Thunder Seal, nor could it be something that the Lei family knew about. Then what could it be? When the group arrived at the Lei residence, they effortlessly herded all the surviving members of the Lei family to the backyard of the mansion. Yin Yang watched coldly from the air, having no intention of intervening at all. If Bai Bingxian and the rest had wanted to kill these people, Yin Yang might have intervened, but these cat demons did not seem to have such a resolute intention. Yin Yang was rather surprised. After all, if they were not of the same race, their intentions would definitely be different. Even if the demons really wanted to kill them to keep the secret, it would not be too surprising. Seeing that there were no outsiders around, the 8 of them no longer hesitated and attacked at the same time. The 8 of them attacked in unison, their strength converging into one. The might of their attacks could be said to be world-shaking. With a loud whoosh, the main residence of the Lei family was sent flying into the sky. Then, following the force of the attack, it flew far into the distance. The main residence of the Lei family flew away, but the ground remained flat. Even if the craftsman had done it intentionally, it might not have been as smooth. Do it 1 foot at a time. Only 99 feet underground. You can't do it any less, and you can't do it any more. You must not make any mistakes. Do you understand? Bai Bingxian commanded. Obviously, this female cat was extremely cautious about this mission. This was the last chance to atone for their mistakes. If there were any more mistakes, they would be courting death. Yin Yang watched as the demons dug down 1 foot at a time. Only then did he realize that the main residence of the Lei family was actually a rare piece of land with good feng shui. Yin Yang was proficient in manifestation powers and could transform himself into the manifestation of heaven and earth. He was best at sensing the flow of heaven and earth's qi, so he knew a lot about the natural phenomena throughout the entire bound of universe, other than those places that had been sealed by almighty beings, or those rare places with good feng shui. Under normal circumstances, water would appear after digging 30 to 40 feet into the flat ground. However, the Lei clan's main residence had been dug to a depth of 70 to 80 zhang, and it was actually made of very dry and hard clay. It was clearly a stabilizing layout in the feng shui theory. An excellent stabilizing layout had the miraculous effect of stabilizing the clan's fortune and protecting their descendants. However, this conclusion was a little shocking and hard to imagine. The Bound of Universe respected martial arts. Whoever had the bigger fist had the final say. Heaven's will was always on guard. Be it high-level cultivators or ordinary people, they would not simply commit crimes. As a result, the art of feng shui and the theory of seeking fortune and avoiding calamity were not taken seriously in the entire Bound of Universe. What right did the Lei family have to possess such a land with good feng shui? Yun Yang had long spread out his mental energy to confirm again and again that there were no restrictions set up here. And this understanding was also equivalent to another conclusion, which was that this land was naturally like this. But I don't feel that the feng shui of this place is that good. Yun Yang looked around from the sky. There were mountains to the north and rivers to the south. It was not bad, but both the east and the west were endless plains. Judging from the layout, it was nothing special. How could such a piece of land appear? In spite of this, the existence of this feng shui could explain why the Lei family, a third-rate family that had committed many crimes, had not been annihilated by heaven's will. Yin Yang's harvest of karmic qi this time was unprecedentedly rich. With Yin Yang's understanding of the Bound of Universe, such a sin value was rare. This feng shui formation was a very reasonable explanation. As Yin Yang pondered and pieced together what he knew, he suddenly heard a surprised meow from below. A strong man said happily, "There seems to be a formation." "A formation? Expand the original excavation area. Don't damage the formation's base." Bai Bingshuan's voice turned urgent, but there was also joy in it. Since they had discovered the anomaly, it proved that their master was right. The chance to atone for their sins was not far away. Everyone had the same thought, so the 8 of them worked even harder. Miss Bai's usually spotless dress was now stained with dirt. With the cultivation base of the demons, despite the laborious work, they managed to clear a 500 feet wide pit in no time at all. At the bottom of the pit, on the neat and tidy surface, lines of blood-red light crisscrossed each other, forming a strange array diagram. And the lines of these array diagrams were all pointing upwards. Yun Yang was surprised. Looking closely, he realized that there was a different aura flowing in each line. There were at least 100 of such lines. Bai Bingxian was obviously more knowledgeable than Yun Yang, and was more familiar with the Lei family in the past. This is obviously the aura of Lei families Lei Junming and the others. These bloodlines, each should represent one person. Before she could finish her sentence, she seemed to have thought of something as her pretty face turned pale. As the saying went, one could understand the meaning of a melody. Yun Yang, who was in the sky, was shaken as well, as if he had understood something. The Lei family suddenly returned to the family. They acknowledged their ancestors and the cultivation method passed down by their ancestors. Everyone's improvement was tremendous, advancing by leaps and bounds. After returning to the family, the cultivation methods of the past were all abandoned. Even the god's bone cultivation method that was regarded as a secret was discarded. The mysterious, eerie, hoarse voice asked, "How far has the Lei family cultivated the art of blood droplet?" "There are blood lines like this underground, corresponding to each person." Yun Yang mulled over it, understanding it in his heart. But at the same time, he was shocked as well. He felt chills run down his spine, and his heart trembled. Could there actually be such a vicious involvement in this world? The technique passed down by the Lei clan's senior was clearly an extremely evil and sinister technique. Its purpose was to gather these people to cultivate and use their own aura to set up a sinister formation. Then this formation would be used to continuously absorb the blood and energy of these people, benefiting the user. This was something that could be seen with a single glance. This formation should also have the effect of promoting cultivation. For example, the more that was absorbed, the faster the cultivation progress would be. Otherwise, there was no way to explain the fact that the Lei family's qi and blood were obviously being absorbed, yet they could still advance at such a shocking speed. However, if they continued cultivating for such a long period of time, the result would definitely be detrimental. Qi and blood were the foundation of life. The so-called rapid advancement was but a fleeting moment of glory. There was no doubt about this. It could be imagined. However, just when the formation was working well, and the Lei family was working hard to improve, he had come and killed all the ace cultivators of the Lei family. This formation could not continue after losing its source of qi and blood. Therefore, the tip of these bloodlines were showing signs of withering. Be careful, continue digging. The current formation is still not the key thing that the master mentioned. Bai Bingxian advised carefully, but her voice was trembling and beads of cold sweat broke out on her forehead. In fact, it was not just her voice, her entire heart was trembling. She clearly realized that she might have come into contact with something that she should not have come into contact with at her level. Chapter 1179. Bai Bingxian instantly regretted it. However, there was no turning back now. She could only brace herself and continue. If she stopped now, it would only hasten her own death. Looking at the 7 subordinates beside her, who were happy that they had completed their mission, Bai Bingxian felt her head buzzing. This matter was even more fatal. Lines of blood slowly appeared. Bai Bingxian waved her hand. Stop. Then, she squatted down and carefully pulled up a line of blood. With a light shake, the line of blood actually flew up from the ground, shook twice in the air, and then disappeared. No, it wasn't just the blood thread that Bai Bingxian had touched. All of the blood threads disappeared at the same time without a trace. Continue to dig and be careful. The demons finally dug to the 99 zhang area that their master had pointed out. At the center of the area, there was a small hole. Inside the hole there was a blood mist. Within the blood mist, there was a faint light. It was obvious that there was something magical inside. Bai Bingxian waved her hand, and the blood mist suddenly dissipated. At the bottom of the hole, there was a fist-sized blood pearl. It looked like it was about to take shape, but it was not yet formed. Although it already had the form of a pearl, there was still blood flowing in its bones, and it had not condensed yet. The blood fog that had originally permeated the air was being continuously emitted from the blood beads. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that many human faces were continuously appearing within the blood fog. All of them were ferocious and terrifying. There were dozens of faces. Some were clear, while others were blurry. They were constantly rotating. Among these faces, Lei Junming, Lei Dongtian, a few elders of the Lei clan, and Lei Junming could be clearly recognized. A silent roar flashed past, and the cycle began again. This is the meridian-severing blood pearl, Bai Bingxian exclaimed. Although Bai Bingxian had already overestimated the severity of the situation, she still did not expect it to be such an evil thing. The meridian-severing blood pearl, as the name suggested, in order to form this pearl, one had to wipe out the bloodline of a clan. Furthermore, the targeted clan had to have a large number of people. Only then would the effect be good. And the entire Lei clan was cultivating this blood droplet grand technique. One could imagine that if they continued to cultivate like this, once they reached a certain stage, not a single Lei clan disciple would survive. As for this blood pearl, it would completely form after turning all the members of the Lei family into dried corpses. After that, the creator of this cultivation method would naturally consume the blood bead. The cultivation results of everyone in the Lei clan, along with their own foundation, qi, and everything else, would all become the foundation of his own cultivation. Not a single drop was left. At that time, everyone in the Lei family, including the women and children, the old, the weak, the sick and the disabled, everyone's strength would be reduced to nourishment for one person, and there would be no backlash. This was an extremely evil, cruel and inhumane cultivation technique. Yet this cultivation method was one where those who were willing to take the bait would first see the benefits and not the harm. In the end, before the drawbacks were revealed, or before their blood was sucked, the cultivator would not be able to feel the difference in their body at all. When the last moment came, everything would be too late. Now, although the meridian severance blood bead was not fully formed due to Yun Yang's unexpected intrusion, the blood bead before them could still allow the mastermind to obtain the cultivation results of Lei Junming and the others for the past few years. It was a great benefit. If it was not so, the master would not have allowed Bai Bingxian and her subordinates to come into contact with such a huge secret. After all, the meridian-severing blood pearl had lost the Lei family's qi and blood supply, and was now a tree without roots. The longer it was retrieved, the weaker its effect would be. This is an inhumane and heartless thing. Bai Bingxian mumbled to herself, feeling her entire hand trembling. Even in our demon race, this kind of cultivation technique is also forbidden. She took a deep breath to calm herself down, and quickly retrieved a purple mystical crystal box from her robe. She stretched her hand out to retrieve the blood bead, obviously intending to put the meridian-severing blood pearl into the box. However, just as she stretched her hand out and was about to touch the blood bead, she felt a breeze in front of her. A chuckle could be heard as a voice said, "Let me study this thing first." The meridian-severing blood pearl that was within her reach suddenly flew into the air with a swoosh and rose hundreds of feet into the air. Bai Bingxian broke out in a cold sweat as she quickly chased after it. Who is it? As her thoughts raced, she realized that the voice was rather familiar and could not help roaring. Yin Yang? In the air, Yin Yang's usual purple silhouette was faintly discernible. His face was filled with a faint smile as he stretched his hand out to grab the meridian-severing blood pearl that had yet to form and said, "How can such a heartless thing exist?" Then he stretched out his hand and squeezed. With a soft snap, tens of thousands of droplets of blood shot out. Waves of blood aura also scattered in all directions. A gust of wind suddenly appeared in the air. The blood mist dissipated in the wind and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The meridian-severing blood pearl that was the culmination of many evils in the human world had vanished into thin air, no longer existing in this world. Yin Yang. Bai Bingxuan's cry was heart-wrenching, her pretty eyes bloodshot. This meridian-severing blood pearl was the last chance for her and everyone else in the group. No matter how inhumane and heartless it was, as long as she could send this meridian-severing blood pearl back, it would be a great merit. It would be enough to mend most of the flaws this time around. However, this last chance, all possibilities, had vanished into thin air under Yin Yang's squeeze. Her master had spent years to set this up, and had even sent her to monitor the entire process. Everything was within her grasp, but it was all for naught. The culprit who had caused all of this was only one person, Yin Yang. Everything had been going smoothly, going according to plan. However, with Yin Yang's arrival, everything had changed. First, Lei family's cultivators who cultivated their master's cultivation method had been annihilated by him. Lei Dongtian, who had survived, had also perished a day later. Now, even this last target had vanished into thin air in Yin Yang's hands, annihilated in an instant. Bai Bingxuan's shriek was earth-shattering. She could no longer care about her demeanor as she sprung up, dashing towards Yin Yang with disheveled hair. This was a desperate move. She did not even add the necessary protective measures for herself. Although she knew that her cultivation base was higher than Yin Yang's, the gap between them was not too great. Even with the cultivation base that Yin Yang had shown earlier, it was enough to severely injure Bai Bingxian, who did not have any protective measures. However, Bai Bingxian had already lost all hope. The emerald green vines that blotted out the sky descended in an unprecedented manner. Amidst them was Bai Bingxuan's hysterical roar. "Yin Yang, you won't be able to escape this time. You must die, you must die." Yin Yang stood proudly, unhurriedly. A saber appeared in his hand. It was dreamlike and untraceable. With a swing of the saber, the vines that covered the sky were swept away immediately. Yin Yang's ferocious strike carried a force that was different from before. Unparalleled mystical qi, mixed with an extremely domineering force, swept in all directions. The demonic vines that were initially undefeatable could not gather in one spot now, let alone bind a person. The difference in strength had been completely reversed. The saber light shone like shooting stars trailing across the sky. After 3 slashes, there was only a bare vine handle left in Bai Bingxuan's hand. She glared at Yin Yang with gritted teeth. "Despicable person, you actually concealed most of your ability before this," Yin Yang said faintly. "To deal with a cunning person, one can only be more cunning than him. If not, how could I have come here so easily?" let alone destroy the pearl of abominable evil that should not exist in this world. Only a man with a heart can do what he has a heart. Everyone, let's work together and kill him. With Bai Bingxuan's command, together with 7 of her subordinates, they attacked together. The mountain destroyer and prison breaker technique that swept through the surroundings appeared once more, this time even more powerful than before. However, Yun Yang did not hide his ability now, nor did he show mercy. The saber layer spread out abruptly. The saber light that filled the sky was like a sky full of stars. The burly man who bore the brunt of the attack could only let out a cry before another head was chopped off by Yun Yang. The decapitated man's body wriggled again and continued to emit mist. It was obvious that he was activating the demonic race's mystic art, life reversal and rebirth. It was a pity that Yun Yang's saber skill was different from before. And it was not just a single slash. With the successful slash, the head was chopped off, but the momentum of the slash was not over yet. Another dozen slashes came one after another, directly chopping off the arms, legs, and other limbs of the decapitated person. The last slash was even brazenly chopped down from the middle of the torso. Before the last slash, the man's body had been divided into a dozen parts, but there was still no trace of blood flowing from his torso. It was obvious that the arcane skill's power had yet to diminish, and there was still room for him to survive. However, when Yun Yang's last slash had split him from top to bottom and dismembered him, the power of qi and blood surged into the sky. Fresh blood gushed out and dyed a large area of the ground red in an instant. At the same time, a huge corpse of a demonic beast suddenly appeared on the ground. It was a cat. Although this cat was 7 to 8 times bigger than Yellow Ox, it was still a cat. When the cat demon died, the arms and legs that were chopped off by Yin Yang turned into cat claws. Each of the claws was the size of an adult leopard. In the air, the 7 people who were still attacking with all their might saw Yin Yang waving his saber casually and dodging their attacks agilely. While evading all their attacks, he had dismembered the strong man. Moreover, they could not even save him in time. In fact, he was taking many of the attacks head-on. "Stop!" Bai Bingxian shouted. Everyone stopped their attacks at the same time. Bai Bingxuan's face was pale. Looking at the lifeless corpse on the ground, she was shocked. It was said that a cat had 9 lives. This was not a saying for a cat demon, it was the truth. Together with the demonic race's mystic art, even if it was decapitated, there was still a chance for it to come back to life. In fact, this was one of the main reasons why Bai Bingxian had chosen these 8 cat demons to monitor the situation. However, no matter how magical your mystic art was, no matter how talented you were, what could you do in the face of absolute power? So what if you could come back to life 10 times? I will kill you 100 more times, and see if you can still die. The death of this strong man, coupled with his broken bones and dismembered body, made Bai Bingxian completely understand that Yin Yang had been playing with them previously. Not only was the gap between their true abilities reversed, it was also far, far beyond theirs. The cultivation base of this dismembered man was not as strong as Bai Bingxuan's, but he was still a 3rd-level holy king. Such a level of ability could not even withstand a single strike from Yun Yang. What about herself? How many strikes could she withstand? Even if she were to attack with the remaining 6 companions, how many strikes could she withstand? Yun Yang held his saber in the air. "Miss Bai, why did you stop? Didn't you say that you would kill me just now?" Bai Bingxuan's face was pale, but she did not retort immediately. Yun Yang's full-force attack was enough for Bai Bingxian to quickly determine Yun Yang's true cultivation base and understand the current situation of both sides. The current situation, to this young Miss Bai, was the most awkward and helpless situation she had ever been in. The other party had an irreconcilable grudge against her. The other party had destroyed all the arrangements on her side. Bai Bingxian had the heart to bite Yun Yang to death, not to mention to slice him into pieces. However, the problem was that they could not defeat him. The difference in their abilities was too great. They were not a match for him at all. In fact, he couldn't even escape from it. With Yin Yang's miraculous movement skill and mystical art of being traceless, Would they be able to escape his grasp, even if they were to scatter in all directions? Yin Yang's aura had enveloped all 7 of them. No matter who it was, as long as they moved, they would be met with Yin Yang's thunderous attack. A slight movement would mean total annihilation. However, the other party did not kill them directly but had stopped. Did this mean that the other party had other intentions? Bai Bingxian felt Yin Yang's aura wrapped around her, and said through gritted teeth, "Yin Yang, what do you want?" "%. The Spring Festival is approaching. I feel uneasy." Chapter 1180. Under the influence of such an aura, no one would be able to escape and act rashly. It would only hasten their deaths. Bai Bingxian gritted her teeth and glared at Yin Yang hatefully. "What do you want?" Yin Yang smiled. "Looks like Lady Bai is a smart one." Bai Bingxian sneered. "You hid your strength and didn't kill us. You waited until now to show your strength and kill one of us in an extremely bloody manner, to intimidate us. It's obvious that you have ulterior motives and plans for the rest of us, after going through so much trouble." Yin Yang clapped his hands and praised. "Smart indeed. Why don't someone as smart as Lady Bai make another guess? What do I want from you all?" Bai Bingxian snorted and said coldly, "No matter what you want, you're destined to never get any information or clues from me." Yin Yang smiled gently and said, "Really? Lady Bai doesn't look like a heartless person to me." Bai Bingxuan's expression changed at once and she said angrily, "What do you want?" Yin Yang landed leisurely in front of Bai Bingxian and said with a gentle smile, "I just want to invite Miss Bai to have a chat with me. I'm sure Miss Bai will give me this little bit of face." "We're enemies. Why should I give you face?" Bai Bingxian said coldly. Before Bai Bingxuan's words echoed in the air, a sharp saber light flashed again, and 9 rays of saber light shot forward. A cat demon who was watching Yin Yang carefully cried out in pain. First its head was chopped off, then its left hand, left shoulder, left leg, right leg, before the saber could land on its chest. The cat demon had already revealed its true form. It was another tabby cat. This cat demon's cultivation was even weaker than the cat demon that had just perished. Thus it perished. Obviously, the demonic race's mystical art was linked to one's cultivation base other than one's talent. This was another piece of information. The other 5 people cried out in shock and gathered together, moving behind Bai Bingxian. They looked at Yin Yang cautiously, their gazes filled with terror, as if they were looking at a devil, or the Grim Reaper, who could take their lives at any time. "Young Miss Bai, we'd better have a chat. What do you say?" Yin Yang advised gently. "I'm all right in other aspects, but I'm a little curious. Once you get interested in something, if you don't understand it, you won't be able to sleep or eat. As for me now, I'm extremely interested in this mission of yours. I hope Miss Bai can fulfill my wish." Bai Bingxuan's face was pale. "If I still don't agree, will you kill another one of my clansmen?" "Yin Yang, you are despicable." Yin Yang sighed and said pitifully, "All the power is in Lady Bai's hands. How am I despicable? Didn't Lady Bai just say that we're enemies? Me killing the alien race is a good deed that should be boasted about, no matter where I put it. As for whether I will kill another one of Lady Bai's clansmen, it depends on who among them is the unluckier one. After all, before I strike, I don't know who I'm going to kill this time. Right, I've been suppressing my ability all this time. I've been suppressing it too much, causing my control of my strength to be a little off. It's very possible that I'll kill 2, or even 3 more people later. I can really do it. Won't Lady Bai doubt it?" Bai Bingxian screamed shrilly. "Yin Yang, you're the newly promoted leader of the middle-class Celestial Luck Banner. Don't you think it's shameful to coerce a little girl like this?" Yin Yang smiled. "Why would I? If it were someone else, I might feel a little uncomfortable being so overbearing and condescending. But I won't feel the slightest bit uncomfortable when it comes to Lady Bai." "Why?" Bai Bingxian asked angrily, gritting her teeth. "Because Lady Bai, you, are no ordinary woman." Yin Yang grinned, showing his teeth. "What's the difference?" Bai Bingxian asked, unconvinced. "Because you are a female cat." Yin Yang's gaze turned icy, a stark contrast to his previous gentleness. The words came out of the blue, and pierced Bai Bingxuan's heart. Bai Bingxian, who was exposed in front of her, paled. Facing Yin Yang's cold gaze, she felt that it was so sharp that it could kill her directly. She could not resist it. Yin Yang's previous intimidation, execution, and deliberate provocation were all to tear a hole in Bai Bingxuan's psyche. That was the chance for Yun Yang to take advantage of it. Now, Yun Yang could feel the violent fluctuation of Bai Bingxuan's mental strength. However, just as Yun Yang was about to make his move, he was suddenly stunned. This was because the violent fluctuations had actually disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a kind of deathly despairing calmness. Yun Yang lifted his head abruptly and looked at Bai Bingxuan's face. Hopeless? Why? Bai Bingxian shut her mouth tightly and glared at Yun Yang, saying, Sect leader Yin, everything has come to an end now. You don't have to waste your efforts and try to use such coercive tactics to attack me. I won't give in. She smiled sadly, looked at the 5 subordinates behind her and said, Even if you don't kill them now, when we return, it will be difficult for us to have a good ending. At that time, death will be the easiest ending for us. Her eyes were filled with hopelessness. It's already a capital offense that we can't kill you. Now that the second task has failed because of you, we're destined to die. Therefore, no matter how you humiliate and torture us, it's useless. Bai Bingxuan's gaze was filled with bone-deep hatred. We're not as good as others, so we have to accept our fate. Yin Yang, do what you want. There's no need to use any other methods to disgust us. Why does Lady Bai think that this is a dead end, and that there's no turning back? Yin Yang asked in surprise. Since he knew where the crux of the matter was, Yin Yang quickly changed his mind. At the very least, his previous ruthlessness would not have succeeded. How can there be any turning back now that things have come to this? Lady Bai, I thought that you were really smart, but now it seems that you're just SOSO. This place has long been sealed off by your deific consciousness. When I attacked, I added another layer. Yin Yang said with a relaxed smile. In other words, other than the few of us here, no one else knows about what happened here, especially about the hidden item below. After we leave, there's no need to worry about anyone knowing. It can be said that there's no future trouble. Bai Bingxian said faintly. However, it's a fact that the meridian-severing blood bead is gone. Even if we've concealed this place, what awaits us is still the death penalty for not doing our job well. Although the meridian-severing blood bead is gone, there's still an unusually rich force of qi and blood in the pit that can be converted into something of great benefit. I think that while your lord has been longing for the meridian-severing blood bead, he might not be so sure that it can be born here, right? Yin Yang said with a relaxed smile. Lady Bai, I have a way to deal with this. As long as you work with me, I have a way to ensure that all of you don't die. Since it's a partnership, it's only natural that we both benefit from it. Bai Bingxian snorted and turned her face away, obviously disdainful of Yin Yang's words. In this world, one only has one life. Once it's lost, it's gone forever. I've always treasured it. Yin Yang said patiently. Lady Bai, in this world, having a few more friends is much better than having a few more enemies. In fact, I can really guarantee that as long as you do as I say, not only will you not be punished, you'll also be rewarded greatly. Yin Yang looked at the 6 people in front of him and smiled. Lady Bai, what do you think? Think about it carefully before you make a decision. With Lady Bai's outstanding beauty, I can't help but feel pity for her. I'm not a cold-hearted person. I really can't bear to smash a living beauty into minced meat. Bai Bingxuan's eyes shone as she asked, Do you really have a way? Of course. What way? Tell me. Let's talk about it in detail. Yin Yang had indeed wanted to intimidate them to get what he wanted, but he soon realized that it was impossible. These people did not even have the hope of survival, so why would they be afraid of death? Therefore, Yin Yang changed his direction. It was the same temptation of life and death, but Bai Bingxian actually looked a little tempted after changing the way she phrased it. It was no longer as determined as before. Yin Yang and the demons arrived at the plum garden. Yin Yang scanned the area carefully, and only entered after making sure that there were no unusual movements. Lady Bai, are these 5 subordinates reliable? Yin Yang asked. They are my clansmen who have followed me for many years, Bai Bingxian said through gritted teeth, feeling an indescribable sense of humiliation. To actually be forced to negotiate conditions like this was simply a great humiliation. All right, I'll cut to the chase and get straight to the point. Yin Yang said. I've always been one who values fair cooperation. Let's talk about your worries first. Although I've destroyed the meridian-severing blood bead, and it's hard to get it back, I've mentioned that other than the meridian-severing blood bead, the mystical abyss bead can also grow in a place like this. Mystical pearl? Bai Bingxuan's eyes shone. If it's the mystical pearl, it's naturally more precious than the meridian-severing blood bead. But it's even rarer. It only appears once in tens of thousands of years. Could it be that you have it? Are you more willing to present it to the master? As she spoke, she stared at Yin Yang suspiciously, her gaze filled with disbelief and disbelief. This fellow had even destroyed the meridian-severing blood bead so cleanly. How could he be so kind as to give her a mystical pearl that was many times more precious than the meridian-severing blood bead? It was impossible no matter how she thought about it. How could there be such a fool in this world? As long as both parties cooperate sincerely, a mere mystical pearl is nothing. Yin Yang took out a small box from his ring. Once the box was taken out, the surroundings seemed to have been plunged into an eerie atmosphere, as if they were in a graveyard. The gates of hell had opened in an instant, and thousands of ghosts appeared. When the corner of the box was opened, a menacing ghostly face emerged from the opening. Yin Yang hollered, "Evil creature!" He reached out and grabbed it. Yin Yang grabbed the ghostly item and stuffed it into the box in a seemingly casual manner. He said with a smile, "Since you know how precious the mystical pearl is, you should be able to confirm that the one in my hand is a fully formed mystical pearl. However, I don't plan to give it to you directly. Such a precious treasure. With your ability, it'll be hard for you to even keep it. If you really take it back, your master will only be more suspicious. It's not a joke to receive the treasure with one hand and kill with the other." Bai Bingxian said. "Of course I understand that, but what should I do to gain the master's trust as much as possible?" Bai Bingxuan's words meant that she had acknowledged the intention to cooperate. The rest of the cat demon's eyes lit up as well, a glimmer of hope appearing on their lifeless faces. After all, no one would want to die if they could survive. Whether it was human or demon, all living things were the same. Bai Bingxian did not wait for Yin Yang to answer. Instead, she began to seriously consider how she should proceed in this direction. It was obvious that she had agreed with Yin Yang's plan, and thought that it was worth a try. It was the first time she had raised her spirits and actively planned for this collaboration. After all, she knew more about her master's thoughts than Yin Yang did. She had to consider all aspects in order to survive the current crisis. Speaking of gaining the master's trust in future development, to me, as long as there's a necessary connection, it's enough. For example, something that can prove the existence of the mystical pearl. It was unknown what method Yin Yang had used, but Bai Bingxian watched as he reached into the box. He seemed to be kneading it casually before he took out something that looked like fog, water, and snot. He placed it carefully in another jade box. However, with the appearance of the small ball, the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped by more than 10 degrees in just a moment. "This is the nightmare soul?" Bai Bingxuan's eyes lit up as she asked. "That's right, it's the nightmare soul. Wherever there are nightmare souls, there will be mysterious underworld pearls, either in the process of forming or already fully formed. Moreover, the distance between the two will never be more than 10,000 miles. Bai Bingxian pursed her lips. "What? It would never exceed the radius of 10,000 li? Do you know how big a 10,000 miles is? Moreover, it was possible that the mystical pearl that was in the process of forming existed where the nightmare soul was. However, it was not certain that the mystical pearl would exist. What Yin Yang had said was a blatant substitution. In spite of this, the substitution was undeniably successful. Even if there was only a small chance, Bai Bingxuan's master would still be interested. After all, the mystical pearl was a dreamy treasure that could only be encountered and not sought. It was much more powerful than the Meridian Severance Blood Pearl. At least, according to Bai Bingshuan's prediction, her master should not be able to resist this opportunity that was so close at hand. This is my solution to your current problem. What do you think? Yun Yang placed the box on the table with a grin. I believe that you only need to take this out. You don't have to worry about the rest. Your master will naturally send someone else to take care of the follow-up. With your ability, there's no way you can deal with the mystical Yin Pearl. Naturally, you'll be able to stay out of it and have no more worries. Bai Bingxian frowned, seriously considering the feasibility of the plan. I'll take this back and explain the whole story. There's nothing wrong with the general direction. But should I pretend that I don't know anything? Or should I know that it's a ghost? This depends on your understanding of your master's temperament. I don't have much to say. My only suggestion is, it's better to have a smattering of knowledge. Knowing that it's something good, but not knowing what it is can only prove that the original intention of presenting the strange object is to make up for his mistake. Yin Yang chuckled. There are only a few choices for you to make. One is that your superior doesn't believe you. 2 is that they are skeptical. 3 is that they believe you. Whether he believes you or not, you just have to pretend to be clueless. Anyway, you only found this in Lei family's residence. You didn't find anything else. Yin Yang said with a grin. As for your master, as long as he knows what's good for him, he'll definitely look at you differently. Even if you're not his most capable assistant, you're still someone who's driven by luck. As long as he doesn't find the mystical Yin Pearl, you'll be indispensable. Do you understand this? Because he wants to find the mystical Yin Pearl. And I'm the culprit, the cause? That's right. The true value of a mystical Yin Pearl surpasses too many meridian severing blood pearls. The blood pearls can only increase one's cultivation base, blood qi, and foundation to a certain extent. But the mystical Yin Pearl is an extraordinary item that leads straight to Tao. Bai Bingshuan's eyes grew brighter. It could work. It could definitely work. But he'll definitely come to check. Even if he doesn't come personally, he'll send his most capable subordinates. This is the inevitable next step. I'll be fully prepared. Whether he comes personally or sends someone else, he won't be able to obtain the mystical Yin Pearl directly, but there will definitely be some clues. This bit of information will be enough. I can accept this cooperation. Bai Bingxian thought about it for a long time and said in a low voice. However, compared to what you're giving, what you can get from me isn't much. Yin Yang was stunned. Oh, I really don't know much, Bai Bingxian said blandly. I don't even know anything. This is the truth. Compared to the demon clan, my strength is only at the bottom. The reason why my subordinates and I were assigned to carry out this mission is mainly because of our ability to transform and protect our lives. It has nothing to do with cultivation or battle prowess. If not for the fact that the Lei family's cultivation is very limited, we wouldn't even have the right to supervise them. Yin Yang laughed and said, I've already predicted this. The price you need to pay is extremely simple. I'll ask and you'll answer. If you can't answer, I won't force you. Just owe me a favor. I believe that we can still work together in the future, perhaps even for a long time. Bai Bingxian forced a smile. Her expression was still a little stiff, but it was no longer as hostile as before. If that's the case, please ask your questions. All right, my first question is, are you felines of the demon race? The demon race? Bai Bingshuan's expression changed instantly. She bit her lip and nodded. According to what I know, the demon race, isn't it a very powerful race in the demon race? Why were you sent here? Yun Yang looked at Bai Bingxian suspiciously. Rumor has it that the Nine Lives Cat King is an existence that is not much weaker than a demon emperor. I was quite critical of this, but after today's battle, the rumor is indeed true. Rumor had it that the Nine Lives Cat King had fought with the Sacred Heart Palace's Lord Hua. After that battle, Lord Hua had a new realization and went into closed-door cultivation to attempt a breakthrough. He had not come out until now, which was why Zhan Wufei was replaced as the Sacred Heart Palace's lord. The Nine Lives Cat King seemed to have gained something after his return as well. Everything else aside, Yun Yang had personally experimented with the feline clan's mystique of self-preservation today. Being able to stay alive even after being decapitated and having one's body crushed. It had been proven by both of them. Although both of them had lost their lives in Yun Yang's hands, Yun Yang believed that the mystique would be more effective based on the cultivation base of the person involved. If it was used on by Bingxian, the effect would definitely be higher. Thinking about the existence of a higher cultivation base, such as the Nine Lives Cat King himself, he might be in existence that could not be killed at all. How could it be ordinary? Unexpectedly, Bai Bingxuan's expression grew even more bitter. Back then, there was a cause for the battle between the cat ancestor and the Sacred Heart Palace's lord. After the battle, Lord Cat Ancestor found out the truth by chance. He was enraged and went straight to the Demon Palace and killed the Demon Emperor's second crown prince. Everyone in the second crown prince's palace was killed by the Mad Cat Ancestor. Hearing Bai Bingxuan's words, Yin Yang was shocked. He had only asked casually, not intending to dig deeper. He did not expect to find out such an earth-shattering inside story. After that, the cat ancestor was personally captured and suppressed by the Demon Emperor. Even though the cat ancestor's physical body was immortal, he could not escape the Demon Emperor's limitless imprisonment and could not come out again. As the cat ancestor was suppressed, the Nine Lives cat race was suppressed by the Empress and her clansmen. If it was light, they would be exiled. If it was serious, they would lose their lives. Almost all of the Nine Lives cat race's seniors, who served in the Demon Emperor's court, were imprisoned and killed with groundless charges. It was only a few decades. The millions of people who had transformed, and the billions of people who had not, were all dead. Now there are less than 1,000 of the Nine Lives demon cat race who can transform, and there are only 100,000 of them who have not. The Nine Lives demon cat race that was once prosperous and domineering in the Demon Emperor's domain now exists only in name. Destruction is imminent. Bai Bingxuan's gaze was bleak, as if she was weeping. I see, Yin Yang said. There was no news of this in the outside world at all. Of course, this is the biggest scandal of the Demon Emperor's clan in a million years. How could it not be covered up? Bai Bingxuan's eyes glinted with resentment. What's more, the Celestial Canine clan, who had the closest relationship with the Nine Lives demon cat race, and boasted that they had been close for millions of years, changed sides. This made the Nine Lives cat race even worse. I don't know when the rumor started spreading, but it was said that dogs are loyal by nature and only recognize one master in their lifetime, loyal to death. Cats, on the other hand, are cunning by nature, greedy for enjoyment, fond of delicacies and loathe work. They can betray their masters for some benefits at any time. Unfortunately, this nonsense spread far and wide in the Demon Peacock Emperor's realm. It became more and more intense, and the entire Demon Peacock Emperor's realm had no place for the Nine Lives cat clan. The elders of the clan were forced to move out in order to survive. Unexpectedly, this indirectly confirmed the rumor that they had betrayed their masters. The time when we were hunted by the entire Demon Emperor's realm was the darkest time for the Nine Lives cat race. Those who managed to escape the Demon Emperor's realm reached the outside world safely and survive. Bai Bingxian said sadly, I don't know how many, but the number is definitely not many. My father, mother, uncles, aunts, and the others all perished during the escape. However, on our journey, there were 6,000 to 7,000 people who escaped together. But in the end, only the 8 of us survived. Her eyes were rimmed red as she murmured, Now, only 6 are left. Yin Yang did not expect his casual question to elicit such a shocking piece of information. Just this alone was already worth the ticket price he had paid for this setup. Chapter 1181. In order to work better, and to have a better breakout, I'm carefully applying for a few days of leave. Leaders, please give your instructions. It's scheduled to start tomorrow. Brackets. 29th of the 12th month to the 7th day of the 1st month. I'm applying for 8 days of leave, on the account that I've been diligent and hardworking for more than a year, and that I'm especially handsome. Please sign your permission. That's all. Thank you very much. I'm the Supreme Being, applies for leave from the leaders for the Chinese New Year. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 1182. This year's Lunar New Year was very boring. No one was setting off firecrackers anymore. Moreover, I applied for 8 days of leave, but I was stuck in a bottle for 4 days. Can you believe it? I'm still wearing a thick cotton cap. Can you believe it? I wasn't sick when I didn't apply for leave, but after I applied for leave, my head froze, and then I got a migraine. This is really. I wanted to have a big drink this Lunar New Year. But because of this, I didn't even get to drink red wine. Can you believe it? I didn't drink a drop of wine this Lunar New Year. Other people gained 10 pounds during the Lunar New Year, but I lost 6 pounds during the Lunar New Year. Other people drink and brag at night, but I wear the electric headgear that my wife borrowed for perming to prevent my head from sweating. Sigh, I won't act pitiful anymore. In short, I'm not happy. I'll update at night, alright. I am the Supreme, I'm back. Currently typing. Please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 1183. Pardon my rudeness. I didn't expect Lady Bai to be an important figure of the Nine Lives Cat Demon clan. Yin Yang smiled. Why do you say that? Bai Bingxian denied it hurriedly. I'm only a junior demon with a shallow cultivation base, who was lucky enough to escape. Yin Yang chuckled again and said leisurely. Throughout the entire escape process, many seniors with a higher cultivation base than you have died. But you, a little demon with a shallow cultivation base, have remained safe and sound the entire time. As for the subordinates who stayed by your side, their attitude towards you was more like blind loyalty than admiration. Wouldn't I be an idiot if I couldn't see this? Bai Bingxian shook her head with a pained expression. Leader Yan's eyes are sharp, of course you're right. But what about our past identities? It's all in the past. Now we're just a bunch of cat demons who depend on each other. That's all, there's no difference between us. Yin Yang nodded and did not linger on the topic. Lady Bai, you said that since the cat ancestor didn't perish, but was only suppressed, it means that there's still a chance for him to come out again. Then why are the other demons so ruthless and merciless? Aren't they afraid of his revenge in the future? Other than His Majesty the demonic sovereign's limitless imprisonment, the Lord Cat ancestor is also suppressed in the demon lake. Bai Bingxian said. Ever since the demonic sovereign's domain was established, none of the demonic seniors who were suppressed in the demon lake have ever come out alive. It's also because of this common understanding that the various clans made their choice. Yin Yang sighed. So that was why the cat ancestor had basically been executed. Yin Yang could not help but recall Feng Guohai's introduction to the Nine Lives Cat back then. When the Nine Lives Cat and Hall Master He fought, everything within 10,000 miles was destroyed. None of the mountains and rivers were spared. How peerless was that? How glorious was that? Combined with the cat ancestor's life-saving ability that he had personally experienced today, it was truly remarkable. If the cat ancestor were to perform this skill himself, who knew how far he could go? The so-called immortality of the physical body was definitely not a lie. But such a figure had failed, and was suppressed at the bottom of the demon life lake, causing his clan to lose power just like that. Practically all of his clansmen were slaughtered, causing him to be in an extremely miserable state. When the two were compared, it truly caused others to be unable to help but sigh. Thinking of this, Yin Yang looked at Bai Bingxian again. His gaze was even more meaningful. This girl's identity must be extraordinary. No wonder she was sent here for a mission. She is obviously here to seduce her. She should greet her with her body, but she still ignored Lei Dongtian. However, since Bai Bingxian was unwilling to talk about it, Yin Yang did not probe further. Since all of you are, then why? Yin Yang looked at Bai Bingxian. The reason why we were able to escape and come back from death was because of someone's help. And it was this person who, after saving us, used a method to control us. Little did they know that after we escaped, we had nowhere to go at all. We already had the heart to attach ourselves to the strong, but it was just the difference between one being active and the other being passive, Yin-yang asked, "Who is that person?" Yin-yang was not the least bit interested in how this person had controlled them. It was rare for people to be kind or malicious to each other, so the person's motive was not Yin-yang's concern. Yin-yang only wanted to know this person's true identity. We have no idea about this person's true identity, background, and origin. The only thing we can be sure of is that he is a demon. Also, his ability should have reached the level of a royal saint. He is the pinnacle of the demon race, and the world's top expert. Bai Bingxian answered quickly, "Demon race." Yin-yang was stunned by the answer. This answer was completely different from the direction he had guessed. It was the complete opposite of what he had guessed. All the evidence and the direction of the incident clearly pointed to the Lei family's old ancestor, the Sacred Heart Palace's great elder Lei Qianli. But why was there such a sudden turn? The person behind all of this was actually a demon clan. You said that the only thing you can be sure of is that your master is a demon, and an extremely powerful one at that. Yin-yang's eyes flashed as he asked for the first time. Yes, we, the demon race, have an instinctive way of detecting our own kind. Actually, it's not really a way to distinguish. We can tell with just a glance. There's no need to identify demonic aura like you humans do, or to fight. We only need a glance. That person is a demon. Do you know his name? I don't know. Then what did he use to control you? Is it a secret skill unique to the demon race? Yes, he used a trace of his demonic soul to form a bond. Since his ability is far above all the current members of the Cat clan, he can die with just a thought. There's no way to fight back. How long have you been controlled by him until now? Our branch escaped with the help of his ability, but we fell into his hands immediately. It's been 13 years. 13 years, the Cat ancestor was also suppressed 13 years ago. How is that possible? The Cat ancestor was suppressed by the Demon Emperor hundreds of years ago, and our 9 Lives Cat clan is one of the top 5 clans in the Demon Emperor's domain. Previously, our higher-ups were still there, and we could still hide from each other and support each other. Although we were struggling at death's door, we still managed to survive. It wasn't until more than 10 years ago that we were finally weakened to the point where we couldn't even hide anymore. We had no choice but to go to extremes and flee the demon realm. From what you think, did the demon controlling you suddenly decide to control you? Or was it premeditated? I think you've thought about it before, haven't you? Bai Bingxian furrowed her brows and carefully thought for a while. Then she cautiously replied, "Of course I've thought about this. Based on my personal judgment, the other party doesn't seem to have come up with this idea on the spur of the moment. But if it's premeditated, it doesn't seem like it. If it's premeditated, what's the use of controlling just the 8 of us?" Yin-yang nodded. "That's true. Then what have you done for him all these years? I'm afraid there must be a lot of them." A lot of them indeed. Bai Bingxian had no intention of hiding this part, recounting them one by one. Yin-yang listened attentively, occasionally asking for details. Listening to Bai Bingxian's narration of the past, Yin-yang realized that the things his lord wanted Bai Bingxian and her clansmen to do were not dangerous at all. In the beginning, it was not dangerous at all. It was mostly used to train the team and train their teamwork. In the middle of it, sneaking into the Demon Emperor's domain to steal something or other heaven and earth treasure was much riskier. But from Yin-yang's perspective, it was more of a test. In spite of this, Bai Bingxian unintentionally mentioned a topic that moved Yin-yang. Every full moon night, his lord would ask Bai Bingxian to cultivate the Cat ancestor's unique cultivation method under the moonlight, and pray to the Cat ancestor about the current situation of the Cat clan. What did this mean? Chapter 1184. Yin-yang pondered with a frown. Other than that, the most noteworthy thing was that there had been 2 incidents similar to the Lei family's annihilation. Bai Bingxian and the others were responsible for completing the related missions. Of course, their main task was to choose a specific descendant from the family to spare his life and hand him over to the mysterious person. After that, they had nothing to do with it. However, they had then coincidentally found out that the 2 families they were responsible for monitoring had been completely annihilated. At the same time, it was only now that Bai Bingxian knew that the root of all the planning was for the meridian-severing blood bead. Since he understood the crux of the matter, he would probably kill the remaining bloodline of his family at the last moment, and use his true essence to facilitate or awaken the final form of the meridian-severing blood bead. Then, he would sacrifice the blood bead to obtain the complete power. Then, do you know the true form of the great demon who controls all of you? Yin Yang asked. We've never seen his true form. He's always dressed in a black robe, and we can't see his face. However, he should be very tall and strong. Bai Bingxian said hesitantly. There's no need to talk about this. Since he has the pinnacle of the demon clan's ability, it's only a matter of time before he changes his body. It's not enough to be relied on. Yin Yang interrupted. Have you seen him fight? What kind of weapon does he use? We've only seen him use a sword he picked up casually. Other than using the mystical crystal for communication, does he have any other way of contacting all of you? Most of the time, he communicates with the mystical crystal. After all, the missions we've carried out all these years have been spent monitoring the target. He'll occasionally come to Lingxiu Valley where we stay. Does he have any special signs? For example, is there someone else behind this great demon? Or perhaps he's in cahoots with someone else? Or perhaps he's in contact with the demon emperor's domain? Yin Yang racked his brain to ask every question he could think of. Information was often found in these inconspicuous details. I can feel that he has a very strong purpose in his actions, and his actions are unusually meticulous. He plans before he acts. Basically, he has to think about everything for a long time before he moves on to the next step. His cautiousness has truly reached an astonishing level. As long as he doesn't have to show himself, he definitely won't show himself. There's one more thing. Even though we've only killed 3 sects, including the Lei family, we're not the only team under him. That's because I've searched for cases of the human race being wiped out during my free time, and discovered that there were many similar cases. It's just that there are many humans in the Xianhuang world, and third-rate aristocratic families like the Lei family are as numerous as the hairs on a cow. It's not uncommon for an entire family to be wiped out overnight by their enemies. If not for the fact that we've made up our minds, it would have been difficult to discover more. Of course, this is just my personal opinion, and I don't have any concrete evidence. After all, his other manpower has never been displayed before us. Listening to Bai Bingxuan's words, Yin Yang felt a growing headache. According to what he said, this person would be very difficult to find. Yin Yang's original plan was almost useless now. Yin Yang's series of tactics were all aimed at the Lei family's great elder, Lei Qianli. Now, however, it was obvious that he was lacking. According to his original plan, he could not use a single one of them. Instead, it was the mystical Yin Pearl that he had thought of on the spur of the moment that might yield some results. Is there anything else you want to know? Bai Bingxian was more proactive now. From Yin Yang, she had discovered a way for her to break free from his control. However, the information she had provided was too weak and did not match the benefits that Yin Yang had offered. Naturally, she hoped that he could provide more assistance to increase the leverage that she could use. What I want to know. Yin Yang's mind flashed as he said, the people behind you should know about the Lei family reuniting with their ancestors, right? The Lei family only cultivated the evil cultivation method that's suitable for the meridian severance blood pearl after reuniting with their ancestors. And that lord of yours sent you here at this time, Yin Yang said faintly. So no matter what, at least on the surface, it's related to the Lei family's old ancestor. Indeed, Yin Yang's deduction was not wrong based on this layer of cause and effect. It was completely reasonable. Of course I know this, but the person who gave the cultivation method back then might not be an imposter, Bai Bingxian said calmly. With his skill, if he wanted to impersonate the Lei family's old ancestor to set up this trap, it's impossible for the Lei family's people to tell. So, yes or no, what the truth is, it all depends on what we do and how we do it. With Bai Bingxuan's reminder, Yin Yang, who had thought through this crucial point, felt refreshed and inspired. Bai Bingxian, for the time being, we're making a deal. I'll use a trick in exchange for your information, and you won't have to die because of it. You might even be put in an important position. However, I think we can work together on a deeper level. After all, the differences between humans and demons are no longer so absolute to you. Yin Yang said with a smile. Bai Bingxian broke into a smile, like a blossoming flower at the dawn of spring. I feel the same. Maintaining a close working relationship with sect leader, Yin may be the key to the cat clan's survival. Then use your freedom to exchange for space for our cooperation. Yin Yang said softly. This is my bargaining chip. Bai Bingxian pressed her lips together and said, I'll cooperate fully with you. Yin Yang chortled. Then I wish us a happy cooperation and mutual benefit. Watching Yin Yang leave, Bai Bingxuan's expression turned grim again. Princess, can this Yin Yang be trusted? Behind her, a slightly scrawny cat demon asked softly. Bai Bingxuan's gaze was blank as she murmured, It doesn't matter whether he's trustworthy or not now. We've long given up on anyone. Ever since that day, haven't we realized our current situation? We're only someone else's slaves now. Whether we can survive this ordeal is still uncertain. What right do we have to choose whether someone else is trustworthy or not? We can only take a gamble. Bai Bingxian gripped the jade box in her hand tightly, as if she was holding on to her life. Let's go. The mystical Een Pearl. This is a big enough bet. Let's see if you'll take the bait. Yin Yang returned to the Lei family residence in stealth mode and made some arrangements. Chapter 1185. Bai Bingxian had already sent the message. The Lei family has been annihilated. Yin Yang is confirmed to have escaped without a trace. According to my lord, we dug 99 feet deep, but found something strange. This subordinate can't see it clearly, so it's hard for me to make a decision. Please make a decision, my lord. After the message was sent out, a lazy voice came from the other end after a while. What is it? When this subordinate obtained this item, I was almost taken advantage of by it. It took me a lot of effort to put it away. That item has the ability to transform. I guess it's very similar to the legendary Nightmare Soul. Bai Bingxian said with uncertainty. Hearing Bai Bingxuan's words, the other side of the message crystal immediately flashed with unprecedented urgency. The person's voice came one after another, as if there was no end to it. Nightmare Soul? Are you sure? The ability to transform? What did it transform? How many illusions did it form? To what extent? Your ability is mediocre, but it took you a lot of effort to capture it? Could this Nightmare Soul already be able to pursue souls? No, if it could, how could you capture it with your ability? After 3 sentences he calmed down. Stay where you are. Don't move. Don't make any reckless moves. Then there was no sound. After Bai Bingxian and the others left, Yin Yang stayed for a while at the Lei family's old residence before shooting off in a direction far away. Then, he returned to the old residence and made some arrangements before leaving, satisfied. I still need to add something over there. After some thought, he went to the faraway mountain again. He made 3 trips back and forth. Nightmare Soul? Everything that should be there. Something that people suspect is there. It's just that. Yin Yang left with an inexplicable chuckle. This setup should be enough to keep the human or demon in the dark interested for a long time. On the second day of Yin Yang's departure, Bai Bingxian and the others came to the side of the dug hole, as Yin Yang had instructed, waiting quietly. Yin Yang was straightforward. Bai Bingxuan's master had been longing for the mystical Een Pearl, and would definitely arrive the next day. He had to wait early to ensure that there was no mistake. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew in the sky and a black shadow covered the sun. In an instant, the Lei family's old residence became gloomy, as if it was no longer in the mortal world. Bai Bingxian and the others didn't dare to move recklessly. A black figure suddenly appeared in the sky. The newcomer was wearing a large black robe that covered his body and face. As the wind blew, the black robe fluttered in the air. It was as if the person was weightless, as if only the black robe was fluttering in the air. Was it discovered here? A sinister voice came from within the black robe, but it caused everyone to shiver and feel a chill run down their spines. Yes. Bai Bingxian replied respectfully with her head lowered. Why aren't you showing me? Bai Bingxian dared not delay, as she presented the box that Yun Yang had passed to her with both hands. With a wave of the black-robed man's hand, the box flew up from Bai Bingxuan's hand and slowly flew hundreds of feet before landing in his hand. It was also at this moment of contact that the black-robed man felt the strange wave that came from the box. It was an extremely sinister chill that was filled with an endless desire to devour. The black-robed man was delighted. He sensed it carefully again, and realized that the item in the box was filled with an indescribable vitality other than an otherworldly chill. It was as if it could endlessly rush left and right in the jade box, trying its best to break free. Such vitality and spirituality were all pointing in the direction that the black-robed man hoped for the most. The black-robed man actually trembled slightly in the air, his eyes glinting. The demonic chi that enveloped him spread, and the ghostly aura around him intensified. It's a nightmare soul indeed. It's really a nightmare soul. He turned his head abruptly, his gaze focused on the place where the Lei family's residence used to be, but was now a bottomless pit. He sucked in a deep breath. I didn't expect a nightmare soul to appear here. Could it be that the heavens are blessing me and helping me achieve my dream? But why would a spiritual item like a nightmare soul appear here? I used the art of crimson to lead the way, the Lei family's flesh and blood as a guide, and the soul as a mark. The expected reward was only the meridian-severing blood bead. Why would a nightmare soul appear? This shouldn't be the effect of the crimson meridian-severing formation. It should be. The person in the black shadow muttered to himself, his eyes looking in all directions, constantly scanning. This should be. This area is actually an extremely rare and well-hidden gathering place of ghosts. However, this has been the Lei family's old residence for generations. Although the Lei family's talents are mediocre, they are a thriving family with an extraordinary foundation and luck. How can it be a gathering place of spirits under their old residence? Looking at the extremely obvious terrain of the three sons, the black-robed person frowned. After thinking for a while, he couldn't figure it out no matter what. At this moment, there was another movement underground. The black-robed person's eyebrows twitched. His entire body shot into the pit like lightning. As he raised his hands, the entire layer of soil flew up. His efficiency was more than 100 times that of Bai Bingxian and the others. However, even though he acted extremely fast, he was still a step too late. He only had time to see a gray stream of air flash eerily before disappearing into the ground without a trace. Only an eerie feeling spread out from underground. Although it was only a flash, it lingered for a long time and was not fake. The black-robed person's figure flashed and shot into the sky. In an instant, he had already rushed thousands of feet into the sky. He also released all the power of his divine sense. Immediately, he focused his gaze on the distant mountain range that was beyond his sight. The eerie power was fleeing in that direction. It's actually another nightmare soul. How can this be? The black-robed person stood in midair, a little dazed for a moment. Was the crimson chi here so thick? He thought hard. The nightmare soul has actually appeared here again. This place. Could it be? Yes, it must be so. The black-robed person's eyes suddenly lit up when he thought of this. He seemed to have figured something out. Although this is the Lei family's old residence, and the place where the luck of the family gathers, it is also the place where the Lei family's male bloodline has been wiped out. The accumulated fortune of the Lei family over the generations has instead fueled the resentment within the Lei family. Especially these few days when the Lei family has been completely annihilated, the resentment is at its peak, and the nightmare soul can only grow by gathering the purest negative energy. Chapter 1186. Therefore, other than the incomplete meridian severance blood bead, the real reason for the nightmare soul's arrival is also because of the resentment from the Lei family's men's deaths over the past few days. It's reasonable that the energy that should have formed the meridian severance blood bead has been sucked dry. Although the resentment gathered by the Lei family is heavy, it's only temporary. What's more, the meridian severance blood bead's power is more in line with the nightmare soul's intentions. allowing Bai Bingxian to take it by accident. How lucky! Now that the nightmare soul has come and left, it might not be because of me, but because it's being transported. Although the nightmare soul's attribute is unique, its power is relatively limited. It's obvious that Bai Bingxian could capture it. There must be more than one nightmare soul that has come to absorb the Meridian Severance Blood Bead's power. Does this mean that there's a mystical Een Pearl in this area? And it's in the process of forming? Muttering the words mystical Een Pearl, the black-robed man's silhouette that was hidden in the black robe actually trembled in excitement. It was obvious that he could not control his emotions. The mystical Een Pearl. The black-robed man's gaze was filled with unconcealable greed and longing. The Tao of Yang, the Tao of Yin. Both paths of Yin and Yang can lead straight to the end. Then he landed in a flash. Looking at Bai Bingxian, a new doubt rose in his heart. That's not right. A single nightmare soul's combat power isn't strong, but it's extremely fast. Even if I wanted to capture it, I probably wouldn't be able to catch up, much less capture it. With Bai Bingxian's ability, how could she capture it? Thinking about this, he blurted out, "How did you capture this thing then?" Following Yin Yang's instruction, Bai Bingxian answered in a trembling voice. After this subordinate dug out the destination according to Master's method, I didn't see the blood bead that you've mentioned. There was only a thick blood fog around this thing that was squirming. The moment we met, it pounced towards this subordinate. Everything happened too quickly. In a moment of desperation, this subordinate stretched out my hand. I caught it with just a stretch of my hand. There wasn't anything out of the ordinary. This subordinate was very surprised then. He grabbed it with just a stretch of his hand? When the black-robed man heard this, a strange light flashed in his eyes. He stared at Bai Bingxian without blinking. He extended his hand and grabbed Bai Bingxian's wrist. A stream of qi instantly entered Bai Bingxian's meridians. After quickly wandering around, he suddenly realized something and said, "Your 9 Lives Demon Cat clan actually had such a special talent. You can restrain cold and gloomy things? No, this still doesn't make sense, eh?" At this point he suddenly stopped talking. However, to the Cat Demon clan, it was a fatal temptation. Once the 9 Lives Cat Demon caught a whiff of the scent, they would feel as if they had ascended to immortality. They would feel an indescribable sense of elation. Since Bai Bingxian and the rest had left the Demon Emperor's realm, they had not come into contact with this spiritual herb for a long time. Now that they could smell the scent that they had been yearning for, they could not be more satisfied. She could not wait to take a piece out right there, and then experience the extreme ecstasy of ecstasy. How blissful, meow meow meow. Yun Yang is a good person indeed. The idea he gave me is so useful, meow meow meow. In fact, it was not only Bai Bingxian. The other 5 cat subordinates' eyes were glowing as well. They stared at the big bag of cat life divine lotus pills in Bai Bingxian's hands, their faces filled with desire and fascination. "Bingxian, the follow-up of the nightmare soul still depends on you," the black-robed man said amicably. "Don't slack off. This subordinate obeys my lord. I shall not disobey your orders. If I'm not mistaken." The black-robed man pointed at the direction where the nightmare soul had gone and said faintly, "It should be in that area. We still need to search carefully." "Yes, this subordinate will bring them to search carefully. I will go with all of you. We must find out where the nightmare soul is in the shortest time possible." The black-robed man laughed and swept Bai Bingxian, and the rest up with a wave of his sleeves, flying into the distance. Chapter 1187. It was the direction where the black-robed man had gone. On the other side, it was a pitch-black mountain forest with an extremely complicated terrain. At the same time, Yun Yang was still busying himself in the forest on the other side. He seemed to have just finished his work. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, he murmured, 6 or 7 should be enough. Next, I'll let all of you search here in peace for a period of time. This young master has put in so much effort. It's not right that I don't have a considerable result." Before his voice echoed in the air, Yin Yang's silhouette gradually faded away, turning into a gust of wind and leaving quietly. However, He happened to bump into Bai Bingxian and the others brushing past them. Bai Bingxian did not notice it at first, but she suddenly heard a clear voice in her ears. Bring him around in circles here. Take at least a month, then we'll talk about the rest. Bai Bingxuan's expression did not change, but she was shocked inwardly. What cultivation base does this sect leader Yun have? He has suppressed us previously, but it has not reached the point of killing us instantly. Even if his ability is far superior, the disparity should not be too great. However, this master of mine has the cultivation base of a demon king. Yin Yang's voice was so close, but why did he not notice the latter at all? The two of them were clearly very close to each other, almost touching each other's bodies. Such an ability was more than just shocking. It was unimaginable and unbelievable. Yin Yang did not linger any longer, hurrying back to the residence of 9 Supremes. Although Yin Yang appeared calm and unruffled in front of Bai Bingxian, he was actually quite anxious. In the few days he had stayed here, especially on the last day, countless forces of karma had gathered from all directions, almost without a break from dawn to dusk. In other words, Yin Yang had been like an ocean for the past few days. Countless streams of karmic energy flowed into him, at every moment of every day. What had happened was almost self-evident. At the very least, the residents of 9 Supremes had killed a lot of people. A lot of bad people, villains and cowards. Otherwise, this would not have happened. It was true. During the period of time when Yin Yang was not around, the disciples who were still in the residence of 9 Supremes continued to cultivate and improve as hard as they could, while the top 10 disciples and the leaders of the residence of 9 Supremes who had gone out to train according to the original plan. Within a radius of 20,000 miles from the residence of 9 Supremes, there were traces of the residence of 9 Supremes, disciples roaming the martial world. How dare you lie to me? Yun Xiaoxin pouted as she glanced at the dozen corpses in front of her, her eyes still filled with anger. It was not that Yun Xiao was narrow-minded, but as the eldest senior sister of the residence of 9 Supremes, she had been deceived 7 to 8 times in less than a month of roaming the martial world. Of course, she was furious. Of course, other than anger, there was also a lot of embarrassment. After all, it was very embarrassing. Yun Xiaoxin still remembered the first time she was deceived after she came out. At first, she thought she had met a few kind-hearted sisters, but in the end, the women's real intention was to drug her and kill her, so that they could seize her spatial ring. Fortunately, she had cultivated successfully in the sect, and was already immune to all kinds of poisons, so a mere drug was naturally not a problem for her. After killing those women, Yun Xiaoxin fell into a state of melancholy, and even felt sorry for them. These people were killed by me just like that, and I'm obviously fine. Is it really okay to kill them? The second time she was deceived, she was simply cheated of her money, and she could not figure it out at first. It was only after a long time that she came to her senses. It was too embarrassing. The furious eldest senior sister rushed back to find the cheater and punish him severely. For the third time, Yun Xiaoxin pretended to be smart and showed off her amazing strength. Then, she was respectfully invited into the stronghold as a distinguished guest, and so many people knelt in front of her and begged her to be their big sister. Yun Xiaoxin, who thought she had succeeded in her scheme, was overjoyed and satisfied the pleasure of being the big sister. However, the pleasant time was always short. After killing several batches of enemies who came to make trouble for her, she realized that her little brothers were all a group of people who committed all kinds of evil and heinous crimes. When she came forward to solve them, she was only helping the evildoer or becoming a scapegoat or cannon fodder. Realizing this, Yun Xiaoxin flew into a rage and naturally drew her sword to kill them. But then the 4th time, the 5th time, the 6th time. I can't believe the hearts of the people in the martial world are so unfathomable. Eldest senior sister Yun Xiaoxin, who had encountered this many times, was indignant. Am I really so gullible? This is ridiculous. If her junior brothers and sisters knew about this, they would laugh at her to death. At the thought of this, Yun Xiaoxin felt a chill run down her spine. She absolutely absolutely could not let the second person know about this glorious history of hers. Absolutely not. A woman's voice calling for help came from the front. It must be another scoundrel bullying a woman. Without saying a word, Yin Xiaoxin rushed forward with righteous indignation and drew her saber to help. She was a chivalrous woman who was willing to take revenge. A long time passed. Yin Xiaoxin nodded and bowed, smiling at the two angry old men in front of her. I'm sorry. I didn't know. That woman is a thief. I'm really sorry. I'll take responsibility for what I've done. I'll compensate you for your losses. Sigh. She had only wanted to get their gratitude. But in the end, all she got was complaints. It's so difficult to make a living in the martial world. There are too many liars. The bitterness in her heart grew stronger and stronger. It's said that there are many good people in the world. But why haven't I met many good people along the way? Instead, I've met one scoundrel, and scoundrel after scoundrel? Someone even tried to trick me and sell me into a brothel. Even though I'm extraordinarily beautiful, this behavior still deserves to die. The legendary martial world where a hero could save a damsel in distress within a few steps, where fine wine was everywhere, and where there were friends everywhere, did not seem to exist? The only thing worth rejoicing about was that she had gained a lot of knowledge and experience along the way, as well as a lot of scheming. Sigh. I'll go back and practice as soon as the 2 months have passed. The martial world outside is too annoying, and I don't like it everywhere. With a calm face, Bai Yesheng pulled the sword out of the corpse in front of him. There are too many scoundrels like this in the martial world. If I don't kill them, I won't feel good. And if I don't kill them, how can I take revenge? Beside him was Lin Xiaoro, whose face was filled with admiration. Senior brother Bai is amazing. These villains can't hide from your sharp eyes at all. This is already the 7th wave. Junior sister Lin, when you travel the martial world, you must remember one thing first. There are no good people in the martial world. He must always carry this kind of vigilance when he roamed the Jianghu. Based on this premise, after careful screening, perhaps there would be 1 or 2 worthy friends out of 100. There would also be 1 or 2 who could be regarded as nodding acquaintances that could be made further. Don't take any chances. Otherwise, you'll be at a disadvantage. If there comes a day when you roam the martial world alone, you must remember what I said today. Lin Xiaoro looked impressed. You know so much, senior brother Bai. You must teach me more in the future, and I won't forget a single word. All right. With a cold face, Hu Xiaofan rushed out of Kangwu Union's main gate, bathed in blood and emanating a strong murderous aura. I'll be back, just you wait. Behind him was a series of Kangwu Union disciples. Catch him. We can't let that thief escape. He stole our sect's treasure, the mysterious king tripod, on a small boat on a wide river. Sun Mingxia was as gentle and elegant as usual, drinking with a man in green on the opposite side. Brotherly, we've been together for many days. As the saying goes, we've become old friends in an instant. We've been through life and death together, and we've always treated each other with sincerity. I hope Brotherly will take care of yourself, and we'll meet again someday. The man in green on the opposite side looked reluctant. Brother Sun, you should take care of yourself. We'll meet again in the martial world in the future, and we'll definitely drink and chat happily. If you're free, you must come to the Holy Soul Palace to visit me. Of course. We'll meet again someday. On the other side, in a beautiful garden, countless exotic flowers were competing with each other. Cheng Jiejia and a beautiful woman in white both knelt on the ground. The heavens above, the earth below. Disciple Cheng Jiejia and sister Lian Fangfei are sworn sisters today. Although we're not willing to be born on the same day, I hope. Sister, when you're free, you must come to the Holy West Palace. I'll definitely go. The martial world is dangerous and unpredictable. Take care of yourself, sister. The same goes for sister. Watch and be careful. I'll remember sister's help for the rest of my life. I won't dare to forget it. Sister, don't forget that there's another sister in the Holy West Palace. Sister, don't forget that there's another sister in the residence of 9 Supremes. Of course, I'll pay a visit next time. I'll pay my respects to the immortal-like sect leader Yun, and see how handsome he is. Hee. Sister, don't joke around. Master is an immortal-like person. Naturally, he's not a common person. Lu Chongman walked out of a village with a long saber in his hand, covered in blood. His sleeves hung down, and sticky blood dripped from time to time. The places he walked were full of red footprints, but none of them came from his own blood. Human traffickers should all be destroyed. They shouldn't exist in this world. This is the 9th human trafficker organization. I'm going to continue killing until the 2 months are up. Human traffickers, human kidnappers, all of them deserve to die, all of them. Yin Xiaoxin and the other top 10 disciples were not the only ones who were adventuring in the martial world. Shi Wuchen, Luo Dajiang, and the others were not idle either. They had all chosen the direction where these disciples were going, doing their own things and practicing their martial skills, while secretly watching these disciples. Ever since the residents of 9 Supremes officially advanced to a middle-class celestial luck banner, everyone could clearly feel that their cultivation speed was more than twice as fast as before. They had only been back in the residence of 9 Supremes for a little more than a month, but their cultivation base was about to break through the 4th-tier Saint King realm and reach the realm of Saint Emperor. In the past, when there were not many resources and the blessing of the celestial luck banner, even if they did their best and cultivated desperately, their progress was still limited, and they were still far behind their peers. It was inevitable that they would be discouraged. If it were not for this, Luo Dajiang and Jiang Luoluo, who were in love with each other in the past, would almost always hate each other. Now, with the blessing of the celestial luck banner and the many resources of the residents of 9 Supremes, they were surprised to find that their hard work in the past was not in vain. Instead, they had laid a stronger foundation than the disciples of those big sections. At this moment, these foundations were playing a role. If the cultivation speed of those geniuses in the residence of 9 Supremes was 1, then the progress of these people, who had been tempered and cultivated with the same aptitude, was at least 3. Everyone's hearts surged with emotions towards this common understanding. The road to rise was paved under their feet, and they no longer had to worry about moving forward. The others continued to cultivate their inherent cultivation methods, and there was no change in their state of mind. Only Shi Wuchen himself realized to his surprise that as his cultivation of the sword Dao improved, and he went deeper into the sword realm, his emotions grew colder and colder. Even when he was in a life-and-death situation, he was still indifferent and had a heart of stone. This situation persisted until he was training with Yu Qinghang. When he saw Yu Qinghang being besieged, bathed in blood, and on the brink of death, while he was still calmly watching from the sidelines, Shi Wuchen suddenly felt a sense of fear. That's my disciple. Why am I so calm when he died so soon? When did I become so indifferent? So heartless? I'm not indifferent or calm, I'm cold-blooded. Could it be that my cultivation has actually caused my blood to turn cold? Have I lost all my feelings? If that's the case, what's the point of my cultivation? Shi Wuchen's heart was greatly shaken, and he roared as he rushed out. However, he was still as calm as usual. He rescued his disciple from the siege, and quickly left the area to treat his disciple's injuries. Then he turned to think about his current state. Have I taken the wrong path in my swordsmanship? The sword art should also be guarded. What I need to do now is to get my feelings back. Shi Wuchen stood on the top of the mountain for a long time, a full day and a night. During this time, he did not know what he was thinking. No one knew his psychological journey during this time. But when he woke up, he suddenly stabbed his sword into his dantian without hesitation. I don't need such a heartless and cold-blooded sword heart. 8. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.